Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Yarmouth Select Board, scheduled today for April 1st, 2025. This is a hybrid meeting, which means that it can be accessed by Zoom, and the information regarding Zoom is on our town website. If you'd all like to join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first on the agenda we have announcements. Do we have any announcements today?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to remind everybody that Town Cleanup Day is on Saturday, April 12th. You can see all the details on the town site, but just because this is our last meeting before then, it's a lot of fun. All supplies, big bags, gloves, all of that are issued. Everyone goes out in groups, does some cleanup, brings everything back, and then has a sandwich at Town Hall.
Do we bring our sandwiches?
Bring your sandwich. Bring your sandwich.
No, I mean, in the past, we have fed the participants a sandwich at Town Hall. I particularly remember because I can't eat gluten, so I would look and admire.
I don't
Okay.
think that's happening this year, though, is it?
I don't know.
No.
No, I think you'd have to bring your sandwich. Bring your sandwich this year. Okay, Mr. Kelly.
Bob Kelly, Yarmouth Historic Commissioner. I'd like to just make an announcement that on public comment, the Yarmouth Historical Commission is seeking a public comment on proposed designs for the Revolutionary War Monument dedicated to those Yarmouth residents who participated in our war for independence. The Yarmouth Port Playground, also known as Thatcher Park, has been chosen for the appropriate site for the monument. Design options have been developed by the firm contracted to create the monument, and the Yarmouth Historical Commission is seeking input from the community to help make its decision between the designs proposed. The meeting will take place at 4 p.m. on Thursday, April 12th at Fire Station Number 2, Meeting Room on 6A in Yarmouthport.
I believe that's April 10th. Bob,
April 10th? What did I say?
April 12th.
Oh, April 10th. There's parking in the rear of the building. I'd just like to say we saw renderings today for the monument, and they're pretty spectacular. So we're looking to have some good input from the public. We also just we expect that the dedication for this monument will be June 20th, 2026, which is 250 years to the day that Yarmouth declared independence. And also we will have a ceremony. We'll have a ceremony there, and we'll also have a ceremony, we think, in September for the planting of 53 Revolutionary soldiers interred in Ancient Cemetery. We're going to have 7 by 7 by 8 stone granite markers placed in front of the tombstones of those men. So, and there's other things going on. I think on the 19th of this month, we have also the Historical Society has a celebration of the March to Marshfield, which happened on April 19th, 1775. And that'll be at the Kelly Chapel and grounds around there on the 19th. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. We're looking forward to it. The mic is open for public comment. Is there anyone that would like to make any public comment today? Anyone in the room?
My name is Christine Marzigliano. I'm here to congratulate Mike Bryant on his retirement and to also congratulate the new officers that are being promoted tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else in the room. I see Vita has her hand up. Vita, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
All righty. So it's Vita Morris, and I see that there's a workshop later on in the agenda, which does not allow for public participation, as I understand it. So I have to make my statement right now on that subject matter, the housing, whatever they're doing. Are they still on the subject of trying to put together something in the vicinity of the senior center? And for the umpteenth time, the place is not the right place, and especially I think now that we had a water situation there with I guess contaminated water or whatever, and the well I think was right across the street from the senior center. Besides, at the big meeting when the representative from the state was asked about the water table, he did not make a categorical statement that it's perfectly all right to go ahead and build. So I think that it would behoove our housing people to kind of stop and think about what they are trying to do. If we don't ever use up the entire amount that's allotted to the residents of the town of Yarmouth when we build these housing developments. And in the meantime, there's a big need for the senior housing. There's a huge waiting list there. And I don't know what these housing people are doing, but they need to stop and think. And I'll be very curious to see if they tell us the grounds on which, if they want to proceed on this Forest Roads situation, of what they will tell us on what grounds they're doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vita. Do we have anyone else with their hands up today? No, I do not. So moving on, we come to a rather special portion of the agenda for today, the recognition of retirements. Jeff Colby, I'd ask you to come on up to the podium, please. Our first retiree that we're recognizing is David Moran, who worked for the DPW and Highway for 27 years. Jeff, would you like to fill us in? I understand that David unfortunately could not be here tonight.
Yes, thank you very much. Jeff Colby, Public Works Director. Dave Moran was unable to attend tonight. He's in some warmer climates. A pretty common theme with people that deal with snow and ice on an intimate basis like he did. But we really appreciate being able to recognize him because he is listening, or when he gets back, he will review this. So it's good to honor him in this way. And I'd like to say on behalf of the entire team, we want to extend our deepest gratitude to Dave Moran in his nearly 30 years of service. We thank Dave for that dedication and hard work in being an essential part of the Yarmouth Public Works team. We wish him all the best in his well-deserved retirement and look forward to hearing about those new adventures that he's starting. Dave began his career with the town of Yarmouth in 1995. He was a mechanic and heavy equipment operator, and his expertise helped extend the life of public works vehicles and other town equipment. And through his leadership in the field of fleet maintenance, it's widely known that he's an expert in that area. From the very beginning of him working for the town, it was clear that he possessed a unique blend of skill, dedication, and a very strong work ethic. Over the years, Dave has become an integral part of our team and played a crucial role in Yarmouth Public Works keeping the highway division running smoothly. And then in 2020, Dave accepted the role of highway supervisor. He demonstrated his exceptional ability to tackle challenges head-on and always willing to work with and assist residents and staff alike. His expertise and attention to detail have been invaluable, and his contributions have made a lasting impact on the department. So as we celebrate Dave's retirement, we reflect on the countless hours of hard work, the challenges he overcame, and the many achievements along the way, and we're grateful for the legacy that he leaves behind and the lasting impact on the department and the Yarmouth community. So congratulations, Dave.
Thank you. To read a citation that we have from the Town of Yarmouth Select Board. This official citation, be it known that the Town of Yarmouth hereby recognizes David B. Moran on his retirement as Highway Supervisor effective March 21st, 2025, and for dedicated service to the Town of Yarmouth. And be it further known that the Town of Yarmouth extends its sincerest thanks and appreciation for 29 years of tireless service in the DPW Highway Division. This citation has been approved by the Yarmouth Select Board on this first day of April in the year of our Lord, 2025. We'll set this aside when he comes back up from the warmer climates. Thank you very much. And Chief Lennon, would you like to come on up? We have our second retiree to honor today, Michael Bryant.
Good evening.
Or should we say Mikey Bryant?
You stole my thunder.
Oh, sorry.
My write-up. It's not easy to put, 34 years of work into a document, but I'm going to try. So Mike Bryant is retiring. Tomorrow is his last day, after 34 years of devoted service to both the community and the law enforcement profession. Known fondly as LTB or Mikey B. He is known for his passion as a leader and as a mentor. Now, Mike's career started on the island of Nantucket, working for the Massachusetts State Police as an undercover drug operative. Now, how a guy from Lawrence thought he could pull off buying drugs on Nantucket in 91 is beyond me, because he did not blend in, but he tried. Mike came to the Yarmouth Police Department in 91, worked as a summer officer. He was hired full-time in 1994. During his tenure, he served as a patrol officer, a sergeant, and as a lieutenant. Throughout his career, Lieutenant Bryant has played an active role in various functions of the department. He started out as a member of the SWAT team, rose to a team leader position, and he was deployed with the SWAT team to Boston when they were searching for the Marathon bomber. He was a member of the Bike Patrol, the Uniform and Safety Committees, member of the Honor Guard. He was a supervisor and very active member of our firearms unit. He held the certification as a pistol instructor, a rifle armorer, and a less lethal armorer. He was an instructor for our very popular Citizens Police Academy. He was a fleet manager, so Mike was in charge of all 46 vehicles at the police department, which he has gladly turned over to the deputy chief. He was our special events coordinator. Mike handled coordinating almost every special event for this community for the past 15 or so years. That included our parades, our festivals, major projects like the wastewater, and many other major events. Lieutenant Bryant has also demonstrated his leadership in labor relations. He served as a vice president, the president, and the treasurer of 2 different unions, and successfully negotiated several collective bargaining agreements over the years. So the unions can thank Mike for where they are today from his dedication and his leadership. Lieutenant Bryant also oversaw dispatch operations, and he handled investigative duties. He's managed our detectives. He managed court records, evidence, and the proactive anti-crime unit. Over the course of his career, Lieutenant Bryant received more than 30 letters of commendation, numerous awards for outstanding police work, and his achievements reflect his dedication and leadership. We are deeply grateful for his years of commitment to the town, and please join me in congratulating Mike Bryant on a wonderful career. I left out a line, I apologize. I am confident that Mike will continue to approach his next stage in life as the same passion as he's brought to work every day.
Mike, on behalf of the Town of Yarmouth Select Board, we have an official citation for you. Be it known that the Town of Yarmouth hereby recognizes Michael A. Bryant on his retirement as Police Lieutenant effective April 2nd, 2025, and for dedicated service to the Town of Yarmouth. And be it further known that the Town of Yarmouth extends its sincerest thanks and appreciation for 34 years of tireless service in the Yarmouth Police Department. This citation has been approved by the Yarmouth Select Board on this first day of April in the year of our Lord, 2025. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
You've never been known to be shy, Mikey. Do you have anything you want to say? The podium's all yours.
We all love him.
I get
Few
to
words,
take him
Michael?
home every night.
I know, you're so lucky.
Really wasn't going to say anything. Dave, I'm right behind you. I'm leaving on Tuesday, so keep the weather warm for us. For me, it's just, my world is sitting in front of me, Paula, and seeing me. So having them here is super special. It's bittersweet because it was right for Paula and I for me to retire, but I still love my job, and I'm going to miss it every day. So thank you for letting me work here.
Thank you for being with us. How are we going to find our way around town for the detours now if you're not there to tell us? Okay, Chief. Unfortunately, we did say goodbye to Mikey, but we're also swearing in some a new lieutenant and a new sergeant. So if you'd like to do the honors.
Lieutenant Wells, can you step up, please? You obviously didn't get the script. No pressure, Michael.
Don't stick her.
Ooh.
I'll start from the end. Lieutenant Wells is going to be pinned by her husband, Michael Wells. Lieutenant Diana Wells began her career with the Yarmouth Police Department in November of 2010. Prior to serving with the police department, Lieutenant Wells worked for the town of Nantucket for several years as a part-time officer. Lieutenant Wells has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from the University of Maryland and a master's degree in criminal justice from Suffolk University. Lieutenant Wells served as a patrol officer from 2010 to 2019, and then she was promoted to the rank of sergeant. As a patrol officer, she served on several specialized units and wrote several grants. One grant brought in over $38,000 to the town. Additionally, she was involved with the implementation of the Mental Health Outreach Unit. Lieutenant Wells is currently the supervisor in charge of the Mental Health Outreach Unit today. Lieutenant Wells was promoted to the rank of sergeant in 2019. Since her promotion, she has served as a patrol sergeant, working various tours on the day, evening, and midnight shift. In addition to her duties as sergeant, she has been involved in many other aspects of the department. Lieutenant Wells has been involved in Shop with a Cop, Secret Santa for Seniors, National Night Out, Mental Health Outreach, Crisis Intervention Team Training, and grant writing. Lieutenant Wells has attended numerous specialized training classes in the area of supervision, leadership, supervising critical incidents, grant writing, and she's a sexual assault investigator. Please join me in congratulating Lieutenant Diana Wells on her promotion. Yes, I will add, before I turn it over to the town clerk, that Diana is the highest ranking female officer on the Yarmouth Police Department in the history of the Yarmouth Police Department.
That's
Here,
awesome.
here. Good job.
Good evening, Lieutenant. If you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, please state your name.
I, Diana Wells,
Do solemnly swear and affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent upon me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as a lieutenant for the Town of Yarmouth Police Department,
as a lieutenant for the Town of Yarmouth Police Department,
according to the Charter, bylaws, rules, and regulations
according to the Charter, bylaws, rules, and regulations
of the Town of Yarmouth,
of the Town of Yarmouth,
the Constitution and laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
the Constitution and laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
and the Constitution and laws of the United States of America.
and the Constitution and laws of the United States of America.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
I know. It seemed like just yesterday you were here. Your boys are probably a little bit bigger now.
Reason just for you. Grab the two whites and the one in the. This is for you. Wrong one. Sorry about that. And then this is your official one to keep.
Well, it's official. Congratulations, Lieutenant Wells.
Sergeant Burnham. Bryn. Thank you. Sergeant Connor Burnham began his career with the Yarmouth Police Department in November of 2014. Prior to coming to Yarmouth, he worked for the town of Chatham for 1 year. Sergeant Burnham has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from the University of Massachusetts and has attended numerous specialized training classes in the area of tactics, narcotics investigation, supervision, and leadership. Sergeant Burnham was assigned to the Patrol Division from 2014 to 2021. As a patrol officer, he served on several specialized units, including the Regional SWAT Team, the Traffic Unit, and our Proactive Anti-Crime Unit. Excuse me. In 2022, Sergeant Burnham was assigned full-time to the Proactive Anti-Crime Unit. And as a member, he assisted the Detective Division in various cases and conducted many successful street-level narcotics interdiction investigations. Sergeant Burnham was assigned as a task force officer to the local DEA unit in 2022, and there he participated in numerous investigations with local, state, and federal partners. Sergeant Burnham brings a wealth of knowledge and a passion to work with him daily. He's a leader, a motivator, and a person who truly cares for the well-being of his employees. Please join me in congratulating Sergeant Burnham on his promotion. Sergeant Burnham is going to be pinned by his wife, Corinne.
Good evening, Sergeant. If you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I Please state your name. Do solemnly swear and affirm
Do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent upon me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as a sergeant for the Town of Yarmouth Police Department,
as Sergeant for the Town of Yarmouth Police Department,
according to the charter, bylaws,
according to the charter, bylaws,
rules, and regulations
rules, and regulations
of the Town of Yarmouth,
of the Town of Yarmouth,
the Constitution and laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
the Constitution and laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
and the Constitution and laws of the United States of America.
and the Constitution and laws of the United States of America.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
It's official. Let's congratulate Sergeant Burnham. This is a fun part of the job.
Thank you very much. And as you said earlier, it is bittersweet to see Mike leave, but I am very confident in the capabilities of Sergeant Burnham and Lieutenant Wells, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for the police department. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll just give a minute because I think now many of you are probably going to be leaving. Go celebrate. Mike's coffee is tomorrow, isn't it?
Never got an invite.
Tomorrow, 11 to 12.
How do you,
It came in an email.
I didn't see it.
You're so cute. Down. Okay, moving on to the agenda, we have review and discuss fees. I'm going to turn this over to you, Bob.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just a few words of introduction. During the budget process this year, the Finance Committee had noted in reviewing many of the town departments, not only the expenditure side, but also the revenue side, that many departments had not updated fees in quite some time. And you know, there was a feeling that some of our fees were lagging behind other areas of the Cape, and also by having fees that aren't updated, it kind of puts a lot of pressure on the other revenue sources that the town has had. And I know that the Finance Committee members had brought that up with the Select Board as we reviewed the town's budget. So the Select Board issued an advisory out to all of the departments and asked them to please take a look at your fees, compare them to other communities, you know, in our area, and come up with a process for, you know, where appropriate to update these fees and to make sure that they reflect, you know, the cost of doing business, the costs in our area. And so we've got I think almost every department head with us this evening. The board had adopted a strategy that is a three-part strategy that first involved today, April 1, having a discussion with the board of what the fees are, any proposed fee increases, and then with that feedback together with departments, we would schedule a two-part public hearing that would be the first public hearing on April 15 to review some proposed updated fees. And I believe May 6 we have the second public hearing, which would enable the board to take action if there were any fees to be updated for this upcoming summer season. So, having asked the individual departments to review their fees, we thought to facilitate the discussion, we could begin to hear maybe from each of the departments individually on what they came up with for potential updates, what issues they're looking at, and to get some feedback for the board for our public hearing that is going to be on the 15th. And I thought that we could maybe start with some of the bigger departments. Maybe the Public Works could give us a little rundown. I know they had submitted some material that was forwarded independently from your agenda packet, but board members should have some material from the DPW and the other departments. And maybe I would start with you, Jeff, and we can get you and not Miss Roby as well up to the front here. The mantle of leadership, I know it's. Thank you very much and everyone for attending this evening.
Yes, thank you. Again, Jeff Colby, Public Works Director. I'm joined by Roby Whitehouse, the Assistant DPW Director, and Lori Rizal, our Water and Wastewater Superintendent. We have identified a couple of items for review as far as recommendations for those fee increases. The first one that we identified was the non-resident disposal sticker. Currently, that's $192, and the recommended increase to be more in line with more neighboring communities would be $250. That is the disposal sticker is something that doesn't necessarily cover all the costs associated with that particular component with disposing of trash. The C&D really helps to offset the sticker costs, so we thought that adjusting the non-resident disposal sticker would be a good way to help offset some additional costs. And it's not, we're not necessarily recommending to adjust the resident sticker, but the non-resident sticker is certainly something that there is some amount that could be adjusted to be in line again with more of the our neighboring communities with regards to some of their sticker prices. Just to be a little bit more transparent in that is the town of Barnstable charges their residents a sticker price that is even higher than that. The town of Barnstable sticker price is, Ruby, do you have that number?
It's 300.
Yeah, it's north of the 250. It's certainly closer to $300. So our recommendation.
Residential, 335.
335. So our recommendation would be to increase that. Again, not wanting to highlight the fact that Barnstable residents could come and get a sticker for even less in Yarmouth, but what we're seeing is there's an increasing number of others outside of town that are taking advantage of that non-resident sticker charge. So that's our recommendation, is to increase that. We can look at that each year and maybe bringing that closer to something that's in line with our neighboring communities would be a little more appropriate as far as helping to cover the cost associated with doing, providing that particular function. So that the town of Barnstable looks at their particular cost center and wants to cover the cost with their sticker fees, and we want to cover the cost with regards to all of our fees associated with the operation. And so there was just a thought that adjusting this particular fee would be appropriate. So our recommendation for this next year would be $250 for the non-resident sticker fee, so.
Could we stop there in case there are any questions?
Sure.
Tracy?
How many non-resident stickers do we have? What is the estimated revenue for this change?
Roby, do you happen to have that?
I don't have the
number?
estimated revenue, but I bet we could do the math real quickly. We sold last year just a little over 300 non-resident stickers. We also sold another 11 at the second sticker rate, which is half the price of the first at $96. And we also had 560 replacement stickers. So those were sold at $5 a piece. So that could mean someone's car was sold or their windshield was broken. So those are the replacements. But 300 at the 192
58
rate.
times 58. It's 17,400.
Right, so something just short of $20,000 would be the additional revenue. We'll be prepared with some more detail with regards to exactly what the cost and revenue impacts will be when we do the official hearing for these fees. It's my understanding these are just an introduction into discussion about these particular fees tonight. We did look at the other.
Let me just make sure that nobody else has any questions.
I have some questions.
Yeah, Mark?
Were you continuing to explain, Jeff, with your time, or were you moving on to something else?
I was going to talk about some other disposal
Okay.
costs.
No, I think what I'm interested in understanding is when we come up with fees for the disposal area, how much of the overall cost do we expect the fees to cover? And what specific costs are the fees connected to? That's what I'm trying to understand. Because obviously the fees don't cover 100% of the cost, or do they? Or what's the overall amount of the cost of disposal area options?
So the fees associated with the disposal area do cover all of the budget costs. There's other costs associated with benefit costs that maybe not be fully baked into the cost. But with regards to the budget that you see for the disposal area that's related to the operating budget, the fees do cover all of that. In recent years, we have adjusted and increased the construction and demolition disposal fee to ensure that that happens. And that process has allowed the sticker that residents enjoy for disposing trash to keep that cost as low as possible. So that's been the approach in recent years. It's probably been a good 8 or 10 years now since we've adjusted the resident sticker fee, but we've been able to keep that low by adjusting other fees. And so this would be another fee that we could adjust that would continue to keep the residential sticker fee at the level that it's at.
Okay, so the overall cost that's covered is close to 100%. It may not pick up some of the overhead and some of the other fringe benefit costs for salaries, but it pretty much is very close to covering that. That's helpful to know.
Yes.
In looking ahead, I mean, I keep hearing reports that we can anticipate solid waste costs continuing to go up and up. Particularly food waste is a huge issue, and I know some communities, including even Yarmouth at one time, were thinking of creative ways to deal with food waste. What's the sort of the latest assessment in terms of the cost of handling solid waste disposal? What's the kind of on average, the rate of increase in cost every year? I know in some cases, communities are getting, I don't want to say panic, but there's a really growing concern that solid waste costs, are likely to go up because we're dealing with tipping fees. In many cases, the areas that we're sending our solid waste are becoming more distant and potentially subject to sort of transportation interruptions and so forth. So I'm just curious in your take on where we see costs going over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I'll provide some general comments of that, and maybe Roby wants to provide a little more detail. But as you're alluding to, we're seeing costs generally increasing for all items, including trash and recycling disposal. But one of the things that we've seen, and I think I mentioned this during the budget presentation, is that the volumes of trash as well as construction and demolition material have leveled off and in some cases decreased slightly. In the case of trash, I think the decrease was related to some increased recycling that this community, had over the last year. So that certainly helped keep a more level amount of funding needed for trash disposal. So that's why at this point, we're not needing to significantly increase fees generally in the disposal area to cover costs, just in small areas. And in fact, what I was going to mention about kind of other costs is we did look closely at construction demolition costs to see if we needed to adjust that. But based upon where other communities are charging, and we're right in that area, as well as that leveling off or in some cases a slight decrease in the volumes have helped to stabilize the overall cost associated with that particular item. But it's not because costs aren't going up, it's really because volumes have adjusted slightly. Roby, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
The only thing I would add also is Yarmouth currently has a contractual agreement with CMAS, not only for our commercial transfer station, which is the end of the rail, but also our agreement to handle our trash at that facility. So we are really in a great location where our household rubbish goes right across the railroad to our commercial transfer station and takes the rail directly to CMAS. So Yarmouth, unlike some of the other communities on Cape Cod who don't have that type of scenario, are maybe struggling. I would say C&D, we're definitely hearing about exactly the scenarios that you're talking about, that trash, that solid waste is being railed to other states, and it is getting exceptionally expensive. This year, we are lucky enough to have how shall I say this, a little bit more competition, so to speak, in our construction and demolition contract. There are a couple of companies vying for the business of Yarmouth, so we may have a great opportunity to get a great price. So we've already received one price, and it is very favorable.
That's great to hear. Now, the contract with CMAS, this is my last question. How long does that run? When does that run out?
I think it was just renewed for the lease. So how does it get? Another 15 years, Bob?
Yeah, it may have been 10.
Okay.
But it was we just did a long-term increase that extended the preferential treatment that we get as being the host of that regional transfer station facility. So we've actually got very stable solid waste costs for the household municipal solid waste for many years to come.
That's great. And excuse me, one last question. While I have you, we had complaints, as you know, not too long ago regarding litter from waste leaving a train. Has that problem been fixed?
We contacted not only the rail, but Covanta. They promised that they would take care of it ASAP. I am asking them for a schedule of when that will be taken care of. There is some philosophy that some of that may be remnants from some snow capping from the top of the rails. They are very aware of it. I did receive photographs, fortunately, and I was able to provide them with that, and they promised they would get back to us. We're also going to hold them to task to make sure that the train cars are in good condition, and we have tasked the staff at the commercial transfer station to take an inventory and research that as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Joyce?
Well, my first observation is that I'm staggered by the absent-mindedness of people who lose stickers. That seems like a very high percentage of our stickers. And then I have a question for Roby. And this is my question. We all come along and we go to do our solid waste in the appropriate place, and we see corrugated cardboard boxes. I mean, it's like Amazon fills half of every container. Can you take 1 minute while we're on television and just give your best argument to citizens on why they should put the recycling in the recycling bin?
Yeah, it's not, Joyce,
So the Department of Environmental Protection.
that's not related to fees, though.
Oh,
which is what we're...
It is, because we pay less for those. I think she'll say that as part of her...
Go ahead, Roby.
Sorry. The Department of Environmental Protection requires, and there are laws called waistbands, and cardboard is one of those waistband items that is restricted from the household waste. And to the point about the fees, cardboard currently has a positive value that when turned into the appropriate vendor, does provide income back to the town of Yarmouth.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Liz?
I'm going to ask an ignorant question. I thought we had a recycling cost that was in our budget review.
We do. There's a line item for recycling
Okay.
disposal costs, yes.
Right. So when we say that the residential disposal sticker covers the costs, does it cover that as well?
All of the fees generally within the disposal area cover all of the costs associated with the operating budget, as I mentioned before. We don't have it broken down as to which revenue covers which expenses. It's
and
not
that's
to that
what-
level of
yeah,
detail.
Okay. And I would like to give a shout out because Yarmouth is open 7 days a week, and that is such a boon to getting going, and it's actually open on those times when you're like desperate to get your trash to a dump. Most of the towns are not, and people are actually jealous of us for that, so thank you. And lastly, when we talk about Covanta and the trains and keeping the trash in, I trust they're going to let the bear come back via the train. That I understand when we had the bear on the Cape, that was how the bear came to the Cape, was through the trash train. Nobody seems to know. Okay.
I would be surprised, but maybe.
Thank you. Thank you for all the good work you do, and Roby, you too.
Okay, moving on to the weekly beach parking fee.
Yeah, so the next set of fees that I've been encouraged to take a look at were the beach parking fees. This came up, I think, a couple of times now with the Finance Committee, and I think they mentioned that to your board as well. They specifically asked us to take a look at the daily beach parking fee. This is going to be something that the visitors to Yarmouth would typically be funding. And currently, the charge is $20, and the recommendation is to raise that up $5 to $25. When you adjust the daily fee, you need to take a look at the weekly fee to see what that maybe appropriate amount would be. And the weekly fee currently is at $75. So adjusting that as well, the recommendation is to go from $75 to $100 on the weekly fee. Still a deal to a savings for the user to do the weekly if you're going to be here for a full week. But that's the recommendation related to the daily and weekly beach parking fee, is to go in those amounts, and that will bring in some additional revenue as well.
What do the neighboring towns charge for their daily beach fee?
The daily in Barnstable is currently $25, and Dennis is $35. So I think it's important to look at the two neighboring communities. We do have other information as well. Harwich is at $30, Chatham is at $20, and Sandwich is at $20. So there are some communities that are still down at the $20 level, but for our neighboring communities, they're at $35 and $25 currently for the daily.
Okay, any questions from any? Okay, daily, and then the residential beach sticker?
The residential beach sticker is currently $35. This is something that would be more appropriate to implement if the board agreed in a future year, since people have already started to get their stickers for this particular year. But the recommendation would be to go to $40 for the residential beach sticker in future years.
Okay, any questions for Jeff on that?
I just have one. I know there was in the past talk about a discount on stickers for veterans, and I believe the way that shook out after things with the state and then back here turned out to be only for disabled veterans. Is that correct?
No, not exactly. There is a disabled veteran charge, and handicap. You have to demonstrate whether you're a disabled veteran or you have a handicap plate, and that's $1, and that's been in place for quite a long time, well before my time here. But a few years ago, we went to a 20%. The board went to a 20% discount on the sticker fee for veterans. So that's currently in place right now.
Okay, and then a follow-up question, if I may. Does that depend on the veterans having veteran plates? Because, of course, the state does charge them extra for those plates.
It does not. They can provide a DD-214 or proof that they have served, and that's sufficient. They don't need a veteran plate for that.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you.
What I would like to say about the beach fees, and one of the reasons that we were encouraged to take a look at this, is because of the cost associated with the beaches has increased significantly, particularly as it relates to lifeguard pay and trying to attract additional lifeguards. So this is a cost that will help to fund that particular effort of increasing the pay for lifeguards and other costs associated with the beaches.
I think that's an important point, because as much as we want to stay in line with other towns, I'm going to pretend that Mr. Stone is here right now, because he's a stickler for the law, and the law states that fees are supposed to be related to costs. So I think to make sure that we stay in line with that, we need to somehow make sure we can, in all cases, quantify that relationship. I'm glad you said that about the residential beach sticker for future years. We got into this before many years ago, and I'm not speaking just to this specifically, but I'm more in favor of doing an annual review and smaller increases than doing like 192 to 250 and the non-resident beach sticker. That's a huge percentage. So I would hope as a town, we would go back to trying to review these fees on an annual basis and go up more of an affordable rate than, waiting and then increasing it. That sometimes adds a burden. I know we did that with our water rates, and you're getting there. I see here you're looking at 8% over the next 2 years, and I'm sure that that's related to actual costs. So that's important that we stay up on it, but not looking at these fees on an annual basis and then coming and hitting, big increases is, I don't think, a great way to do things.
I agree. I think that in the case of the fees, it might be behoove us on the board to look at, for instance, the month of January to review fees, so that then if we are doing a resident beach sticker or a dump sticker, we're not going to be caught in the middle. And just have that set time when we do it annually, looking at all the fees. Because some of these, if I read them correctly, it looks like we haven't reviewed, not your department, but other departments that haven't been reviewed in literally years. Liz, you didn't have an opportunity to ask any questions, did you?
No, I don't have questions on this.
Okay. Okay, the water rate increase.
Yeah, so the last fee that we're recommending to be addressed is the water rates, and this is related to significant capital improvements that have been done within the water system last few years. Just finishing up some of the pump station rehab projects, but also installing water mains as part of the sewer project have significant costs associated with them. These were approved at town meeting, but now that the projects are underway, adjusting the fees to cover that debt schedule and other costs associated with the water system is necessary. The water rates have been adjusted over the last 4 years, each year, and Lori's done quite a bit of work with regards to our Waterworth system. It's a system that takes all the financial information in and kind of adjusts the rates to cover the different expenses, and she's been working very closely with our finance director in that regard. I don't know if you want to say anything more about that, but the bottom line is that the current information we have, and obviously we need to come back for the formal hearings with you, which will have much more detail about the different breakdowns with regards to usage and what those various rates look like, but it looks like 8% over each of the next 2 years is needed to cover the projects that we have underway.
So you're talking 16% in total, not 8%, 2, 4, and 4?
That's correct. It would be 8% each year over the next 2 years.
Right.
And that's just to cover the actual costs.
Yeah, our operating budget is remaining pretty steady with just the wage increases. It's really all those capital projects, all the deferred maintenance to the system that we are now catching up on, plus PFAS, where we've already built one plant and we're building another one. So this is covering a lot of it. A lot of our repayment of loans is a big part of our budget now, unfortunately.
So when you come back, can we get financial information in terms of what we're looking at for this? I mean, because there's articles that we already have. Are those funded with the rates we have now, or is this for additional work?
The 8% includes those asks for town meeting.
Wow, okay.
So I can show you in more detail at the rate hearing.
I didn't know that. I thought we already had that mixed in. Okay.
Can I just get that clarification on that question? So Tracy asked, is that in what we're approving at town meeting, the expectation is that the 8% will be approved?
Right.
Oh.
Notice Jennifer keeps raising her hand.
Okay.
Jennifer?
Hi, Jennifer Mullen, Finance Director. One thing I do want to point out is that it's covering, I've been working with Lori, it's covering a lot of the debt. Now, the debt will be authorized. We have PFAS, and we also have the water main replacement with the SOAR project. That's the main driver of a lot of these increases. And so even though we have the authorized debt, we don't start paying that back probably 2 to 3 years out. We're borrowing the PFAS through the trust, which really dictates when we start paying back. So it's not something that we're going to be, in the FY26 budget. We might not be paying back this authorization at the April town meeting for another 2 years. I just wanted to mention that. And then with the $16 million tonight, we have a bond anticipation note. We have $8 million because we have contract signed for all the water main replacement with the SOAR of the $15.6 million that we're borrowing, and we're not borrowing that through the trust. That is, we're going out to market with that.
Okay, and that's fine. But from my perspective, when we're going through a budget cycle and we're recommending or not recommending an article based on information we're given, I think that is an important piece of information for us to know that we need to increase that rate to a certain thing to pay for it. We're told it's paid for in the water
Budget.
Well,
receipts.
it is so for the FY26 budget, the income that we'll get, even if we don't increase rates, will cover the operating budget. It's just these loans coming in a couple of years will start to decrease our reserves to below. We like to hold $1 million in the water fund. Hopefully, Jennifer agrees with that. So it will drop us down. So we have to plan ahead, is what we're doing at this point.
Yeah, it really is a puzzle piece that you put together. They do have a surplus. Their rates are coming in. If you get the monthly reports, they're coming in very, very strong. It will be able to cover the borrowing that we're doing now. We're in the process of doing the debt schedule, looking out another 30 to 40 years. And so we'll have a lot more information when we go in for the rate increase. And we'll have the debt schedules going out that, those years and what they think. A lot of it too is like the PFAS. Just to understand, the trust dictates to us when we have to pay that back, right? So PFAS we have to deal with. We just the principal payment was in the budget for FY26. That's covered. This new borrowing authorization in April. We probably won't be paying that back for another couple of years.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Want to jump in with community development?
So our fees are far less than the DPW big ones. So I'm here with Brittany DiRienzo. Brittany can talk about the conservation fees. The other fees that are implemented through our programming are permitting fees, and they're fees for the Old Kings Highway, fees for the Planning Board, and fees for the Zoning Board of Appeals. And so the material that you have in your packets from us for those three entities, we've done surveys on neighboring communities. I think we haven't probably raised our fees in a very, very long time. I think we haven't provided you with any recommendations. We're happy to do that for the fee hearing. I think we easily have some room to bump up the fees. I was thinking, at least 10%, and probably a little bit more than that. I think that Barnstable in general is on the high end, and Dennis is just a little bit lower. Old Kings Highway, they have in their regulations that their local committee is supposed to kind of review the fees, and I think that they could make we could have them review a recommendation, and then they could make the recommendation to the board. What we've always intended to do is kind of present you with one set of fees. It doesn't make sense for us to raise one board and not another. Going to Tracy's point just earlier, I don't know that it makes sense for us. We should keep an eye on them annually, but ours are very much less. The fees that we generate do not cover the costs. Our costs are largely staff time and some administrative material. We obviously rely quite a bit on our volunteer boards to kind of perform, and we're lucky to have volunteers to do this because that would be another cost. With regards to the Zoning Board of Appeals, there's also room. Some towns, different staff are responsible. We've been very, very fortunate that we have attorneys on our Zoning Board of Appeals that tend to write the decisions. Staff has been helping more and more in that capacity. But again, that's always dependent on who's sitting on the board. I don't know if you guys have any questions on those three boards and their fees.
So, go ahead,
No, go
Tracy.
ahead.
So what you're saying basically is that you'd be coming back to the fee hearing, recommending a 10% increase across the board?
I'd say at least 10%. We can look at, it would be interesting to look at the cost of delivering the service. I know we're nowhere near that cost because I was tallying up the fee revenue just for these three boards, and it's, probably $30,000 a year total for the Zoning Board, Planning Board, and Old Kings Highway in total. We could go to 20. I don't know what the appetite is for this board.
Well, just looking at them, generally speaking, I think as a town, I think a lot of our boards should be consistent. So like if you're looking at the planning board, abutter notifications and legal ads, it's $5. And then over here in 2022, the proposed fee for conservation was a legal advertisement for $15. But what is the cost of that? I can't imagine it's only $15.
It's not anymore.
Right.
It's not.
So, I think that's the analysis that we need to do to, whether it's 10%, 15%, things like that are tangible, actual costs to the town, should be an accurate number. Again, each department for us is treated a little bit different because, like water, they have their receipts and they have a budget with disposal. You guys are a little bit different because the general fund generally pays the majority of your salaries and stuff. But I think that not just looking at the other towns, really looking at what staff's analysis time is to handle some of these things are extremely important, and we should have some consistency through the towns through the different
Within the
departments.
town.
Yeah, if a legal fee is $5 here and $15 there, that doesn't make much sense to me.
No, and, right. And we've had more and more trouble with kind of our legal advertisements and
Yeah. I mean,
different
I-
rates and,
Right, with our
Right.
options at this point,
Very limited.
unfortunately.
My appetite is fine.
Okay.
I really think, getting back to Tracy's point, it's finding ways to make sure that we're allocating, identifying a fee structure that covers the cost and defining what that cost is. I think that's important. Now, one thing that you can clarify for me is these fees that we charge, are they put in a special bucket of money and that we use that to pay for staff, or where does that money go? Does it go to the general fund?
by and large, the three that I'm talking about go to the general fund. I think Brittany's with the conservation go to,
Bylaw fees for conservation also currently go to the general fund.
They do. So it's not like those monies are set aside to pay for staff and support?
Not currently.
Okay. No, because from my point of view, anything that we can do to help deal with the burden in any of the departments, but particularly for conservation, I think is warranted.
right.
So-
And even, it's, I think that the state fees, a portion of those go to the wetland fund?
Yeah, so we have two buckets of fees for conservation. We have our bylaw fees, and then we get a portion of the notice of intent fees that are associated with filing a notice of intent. And the wetland notice of intent fees do go into a bucket that help pay for conservation salaries, but not the bylaw fees.
Well, I'm all in favor of doing what we can to cover the cost of conservation.
Okay.
Because the department just, you have your hands full over there. I've seen it, every time I've come in. So I know you're very busy. I want to make sure that our fees are capturing as much of the revenue that we need to provide to the department.
We do have some new fees. I know Brittany has some new fees proposed. Just in speaking with Kathy, there's a few things that the planning board does which are very time intensive. Things like the road naming. When we have a village center project, just that site plan review, and we currently do not charge for a full design review process. And design review takes quite a bit of staff time. So we'd like to implement new fees for those items.
So when you come back, we're going to be seeing, instead of a rehash of this memo, which sort of tells us what the structure is in 2022.
Were these passed?
No, so these are from 2022. When I first started, we did reassess the fees that had last been put in place in 2011, but community development decided to put these on hold and go for a holistic approach with the whole department instead of just conservation, so that's why we've waited until now. So these are from 2022, and we have recently updated them. We are still putting together that data to make sure they're accurate now. I know there have been a lot of updates since then in other towns with even further increases.
But
So-
in reality, you're working off of the 2011 fee schedule? Is that?
Yeah, the 2011 fee is our current fee. And there are a number of types of filings that we don't charge a fee for at all currently that do take up a significant amount.
We've
of our
got some
time.
catching up to do.
Yeah.
Okay,
Lot of
so
catching up.
so we're going to see a lot more information on our next meeting on the
Definitely.
15th. Thank you.
Joyce?
I have no questions. I'd just like to thank you for all you do. Permitting is, I know, the least favorite part of your jobs, probably, as opposed to other parts, but thank you.
Liz?
So to be clear, you're coming back and for conservation with a more accurate 2024 fee request?
Yeah, we will come back.
So
with-
this is just
This is
worksheet from
information, that this
before.
is currently approved by the Conservation Commission, because that's another board that does. We do name our own fees as recommended and approved by the Select Board. So this is our last approved but not implemented. We are still using the 2011 fee.
And you're going to come back with,
I
come back
imagine
with
22 won't even be a part of the discussion.
Yeah, I imagine it would be similar, but there are some items that have gone up even more. And I just want to point out one of the most important ones is after the fact, working without a permit. Right now, we just charge the same as a regular permit. And having that be 2 times the original would really help us limit the number of violations we would be dealing
Right.
with.
Yes,
Oh,
Mr.
my.
Grills is shaking his head.
That's
back there.
definitely something that requires some attention.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, because there are a lot of folks that really are just totally, here's a whole conversation right there in terms of how do we get people to pay attention?
Yeah,
Really?
we're trying to work on our outreach as well to new homeowners, realtors.
No, I know it's
but
tough.
It's a very big challenge.
I hear reports all the time of the number of people that are coming in, and they have no idea that there's a Conservation Commission, and they need to comply with the Wetlands Protection Act. And that's not the town's act, that's a state law that we're involved in enforcing. And it would be nice to see the state doing more to help educate people as well. But so I anticipate that when we revisit this, we're going to see some changes. I'm going to be very open-minded and very interested in finding a way to make sure that we get an adequate stream of revenue to cover the costs of the department, but particularly to also help for those areas where the revenues directly support the staff work. Like I said, it's one of many departments that has its hands full, and I want to make sure that we do what we can to help address that.
Thank you.
And I'll just finish up. So on the three that you pointed out, road naming, yeah, that's an interesting issue that takes so much time and it needs to be supported. The other two design review applications in the Village Center Overlay District reviews, and I know that there's some concern at the Cape Cod Commission, some efforts to keep permitting fees down for the kind of developments that we favor. And these are reviews that we are hoping will be coming fast and furious. And so I guess knowing that you have to develop a fee for these, and I just hope we'll be sensitive to, while we have to be remunerated for the work, but we also we don't want to cost it out of existence.
No, understood. And I don't think, I appreciate the feedback and wanting to address the real costs of the work that goes into issuing the permit. But I think also, I don't think it's realistic to expect to cover the full cost of our department staff through this initiative. Understanding that we want to be sensitive and we want people to comply and we want people to come forward and go through the permitting process.
Right, because it could be very expensive and then you have nothing to show for it in the end when you're denied. So, okay, that was my.
Approved, hopefully.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you at the hearing.
Don't go, Karen. Don't go, Karen.
Mark, you want to talk a little about the building?
I feel like everybody's been given a homework assignment, and they're all coming in to get their papers graded
What
by
I did this
the
summer.
teachers. That's what it seems like.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Mark Rills, Director of Inspectional Services and the Building Commissioner, and I have to my right Barry Lewis, the Assistant Health Director. Say hi, Barry.
Hello, Barry Lewis, Assistant Director of Health. Nice to meet you all.
Nicely
Say
done.
hi, Barry.
Hi, Barry.
Hi, Barry.
Hi, Barry.
There you go.
Uh-oh,
You're blushing. Come on.
I'm good.
All right. I've looked at these for years. Last time we increased fees was 2015. I think, Tracy, you might have been on the board back then. And at that time, we were covering between health and building combined, we were covering about 70% of our costs. There's a lot of things that we do in building and health that don't have a fee. We can't charge a fee for an enforcement action. We can't charge a fee for plan reviews. I mean, I meet literally thousands of people a year just to go over their plans that they have or development. We have site plan review, which involves every division in town that has regulatory authority. We don't charge a fee for that. But as was mentioned, we're trying not to raise a fee to stifle development where we can get the fees through the building permit fees. So I forwarded some fees to you. One of them was the health department fees. I think that we're going to give those a look and then we're going to present them to the Board of Health. I believe that they're the ones that will authorize the fee increase and which we'll present to you guys for approval. The building department fees are, the building ones alone are 3 pages long, and they're very complex. And it's hard for people to figure them out, and they get surprised when we say, well, this is the actual fee because you missed this segment of it. So what I'd like to do is simplify the fee structure, but be able to capture more money in the fee structure. I've studied 5 or 6 towns in a comparison, and I do have a slideshow that I didn't bring that shows that we're the, well, you guys don't want to, you don't need the dog and pony show today, but.
You saving that for the 15th?
What's that?
You saving that for the next meeting?
Yes, absolutely. I knew you'd look forward to it. You can-
We'll bring popcorn.
Yes, please, I'll bring some for you. It's a simplified fee structure that's actually going to fit on one page, and it's based on value of work. So it's a dollar value per thousand of work, and we can pick the number that works best for the town, but in my slideshow, it shows a comparison of all the towns. Yarmouth is the lowest when it comes to building permit fees, or second to lowest in one category. I think that's only second to lowest to Sandwich, surprisingly enough, for commercial work. So Barnstable's extremely high. Falmouth is right below them, and Dennis is actually higher than Yarmouth when it comes to these permit fees. So I have looked at them. I haven't had a lot of time. I'm a little busy. I'm minus a health director at the moment, and I got a lot of other things going on. So, but I we'll put some stuff together. And I brought Barry here so he could hear the directive from the board, and he can start looking at these to help me out and get some fees put together for you guys.
That's good.
Any questions for Mark?
No, I'm glad that you're moving in that direction. That sounds, anything that we can do to make things simple and easy to understand, I think is highly desirable. And I think what you're going to have to do is show for us how the changes, what it means in terms of overall revenue as well, And again, getting back to the question Tracy keeps asking, where does it fit in terms of the defined cost? What's the cost of the service that we're covering? Are we trying to cover 100%, 10%, 20%? What's the number, and how do we justify that? So
in 2015, the board actually picked 70% as a number they wanted to maintain, and we were going to look at these every 5 years, and we didn't do it. I think COVID kicked in or something like that. So we're a little bit busy. We couldn't get here. And again, there are things that we do that don't have a fee associated with them, like checking up on complaints. So I mean, the board would have to, if the board wants to maintain 70%, I'll be happy to try to fit the new fee structure into that 70%.
I think that gives you a working criteria. I mean, if that's what we were doing before, why don't we just base it on that for this one, too? Do you feel comfortable with that number, the 70%?
I'm comfortable with any number you tell me to find.
Okay, does anyone have any questions?
I did. Mark, do you have any sense, just a general impression, of how much of the fees that the building department charges are for new construction or new residents as opposed to people who are already here?
No, I have no idea.
I was curious. So when I see new things being built, I kind of,
There's a lot of it.
yeah.
No, but can I ask a question related to that? That's a very important question. I think one of the things that we used to track on a regular basis is the number of building permits and how that's trending and how that's tracking. And at one time, that used to get published regularly in the reports of the Cape Cod Planning and Economic Development Commission, for those folks old enough to remember when that group was around. Permit-wise, how is it trending? I mean, are the number of permits going up, going down?
It's slowed down, actually. This past winter, it was a cold winter. Interest rates are up, material costs are up. Those are the three contributors to permits being, right now I'm sitting on $125,000 in permit fees. I'm just waiting for engineering from that one. That would put me back in last year's category as far as revenue.
Thank you.
Barry, is there anything you'd like to say?
Just about tracking everything, our new OpenGov system, it's much easier to track permitting, and whether it's building, health, rental fees, beach fees, restaurant fees, all that stuff, it's a much easier system to track now with our new OpenGov system. So it's nice to be able to have reports easily accessible at our fingertips.
So, Madam Chair, when you say that OpenGov, where do we go on our website on the internet? Where do we go to find that out, to get that information?
It's through the
Town's web?
Through us. You can go through the town website. It's OpenGov. It's the portal for permitting and stuff like that.
Okay.
Online services right on the main webpage, or you can go to the building department webpage, and it's the link at the top of the page.
Just Google Yarmouth OpenGov, it comes right up. Here's all the health, building, planning, DPW.
Thank you.
It's also a good opportunity to acknowledge, I mean, this has been a massive project for the whole department. everyone has, just given up so much to make this open gov work, and I really salute the department and all the staff, and Mark's efforts to keep that moving. It's been positive just because of all the hard work that went into it.
We're still working the bugs out. We'll get there, though.
You're ahead of most.
Thank you very much.
That's it?
Look forward to
Thank
it.
you,
Yep.
guys. Thanks for
Can't
the
wait for the
opportunity.
slideshow.
Look forward to seeing you again, folks. Thank you.
I'll try to keep it short.
Thank you.
Now we can try our community services people. I see Dave's here from DNR and Steve from Recreation. Do you guys want to come on? I don't see Jane's not here, is she? Yep.
Is that her?
Oh,
She's hiding.
No, that's Sharon. That's Sharon, no. Well, Jane doesn't have any recommendations for increase.
I think Jane's
Yes,
online.
she has
Saw her
this.
earlier. Oh, Diane Kane is.
oh, Diane's with us.
Safety in numbers travel together.
Yeah. We got the buddy system going on tonight. I like
exactly.
it.
Newbies.
Right. I'm Dave Condon, Acting Director of Natural Resources, and you don't have anything from us tonight, and that's for a couple of reasons. Well, one, we were told if we had proposed changes to send something in, which we don't, and that's for a couple of reasons. First, we do pretty frequent comparisons with other towns for the fees that we do charge: mooring fees, slip fees, shellfish permit fees, dog license fees, all that stuff, and we are actually quite consistent with all the towns around us. So for that reason, I'm not recommending a change right now. And the second reason is that our fees are currently written into our regulations, which is kind of interesting. So we're in the process. My main goal over this season is to evaluate where our regulations are lacking and recommend changes over this coming winter. And the biggest thing will be to pull the fees out of the regulations, have the regulations reference a separate fee schedule. That way we don't change the regs every time we change the fees. But unfortunately, right now, they're all tied together. So that is the second reason you don't have anything from Natural Resources tonight. That being said, if you guys want to see the fees, I do have copies of it if you want it, or I can come back to the next hearing if you want to look at it and see a presentation as to where our fees fit into our overall budget. I mean, again, we're like Karen said for community development, kind of the same thing. I don't think we'll ever get to a point where our fees can cover salaries and all that stuff. I just, in our operating budget, I just don't see it happening, but I can try and figure out what that number would look like if it did.
Or 70%.
Well, it's more about covering the cost of the service directly,
Right.
not necessarily covering the entire department's budget, but some of these things are more time-consuming. I appreciate the fact that you've reviewed them. I think that they should, as we've pointed out already, be reviewed on an annual basis, and hopefully Dorcas's suggestion of every January, because I know, a lot of the stuff that you've already done your feet per foot slips and everything for the year, so we just need to make sure we stay ahead of that, so I appreciate that.
Today was the day. Everything was due today. It was a big day.
Exactly.
Any other questions?
Steve, were you going to talk to
Yeah,
us
so
too?
I'm
Oh,
Steve
sorry.
Reynolds.
Well, I didn't,
Well,
no, I'm jumping the gun.
No.
No, I don't have any questions
For
then.
Dave, okay.
Dave.
Go ahead, Steve.
Good evening. I'm Steve Reynolds, the Director of Recreation. And like DNR, I didn't send in a memo because we don't plan to change our fees anytime soon. I can go over a couple of our fees for our field rentals, our pavilion rentals, and event rentals at the Luso Lodge, if you guys like to hear some of those. So our field rentals, we have two different rates for local nonprofit groups, schools, churches, and community groups. We have a daily fee of $60, a weekly fee of $140, and a seasonal fee of $275 for those local nonprofit schools groups. And then our corporate, for-profit, and non-local teams and organizations have a slightly higher rate, daily rate of $140, a weekly rate of $330, and a seasonal rate of $550. Looking at some of the other towns like Dennis and Barnstable, there's a slightly different structure on how they do field rentals. They do it per hour basis, but kind of calculating the amount of games and time that they're on the field. It's pretty comparable to the two other towns for fields. For our pavilion rentals, we do a flat fee of $110. That's the pavilions at Grays Beach and Flax Pond, as well as weddings on the beach. So we rent out permitting for people to be on the beach to do their weddings. And that's a flat fee of $110 for 4 hours maximum. And then that's also the cost of the insurance is incurred by the renter as well. So that's an added cost to the renter. So that $110 is, again, pretty comparable to a lot of other towns, or I should say the two towns closest to us. I know Dennis does $20 an hour or an $80 flat rate for 4 hours. So if you want to rent it for a little longer, it ends up being pretty comparable with Yarmouth. And then our lodge, the LaRusso Lodge, our rate structure is kind of dependent on resident, non-resident, midweek versus weekend, and the amount of people at the function. So for residents, up to 30 is, for midweek is 75 and 150 for the weekend. Up to 75 people is 175 to 250, and then up to 100 people is 300 to 500 for residents. And then the non-resident rate for up to 30 is 125 to 200 on midweek versus weekend. Up to 75 is 300 to 400, and then up to 100 is 600 to 800. So those are our main fees. I think that you guys are looking for. I don't know if you guys want me to get into programming fees or some of the bigger programs. I don't know if that's something you guys.
You mean
wanna
like
hear
if you
about.
were to register for?
Yeah, so like for
Flax Pond,
just a program.
right.
I mean, I can talk about Flax Pond and sailing, like some of our bigger summer programs.
Can I stop you, though, with those fees? In the case of the field rentals, what happens, for instance, if somebody has damaged the field? Is there an additional cost that goes to them for that?
So all the field renters have to have that insurance. So I think the insurance piece hopefully would cover that, but we don't have currently a system for damages to the fields. I think that the insurance hopefully would cover that, but that's something we could certainly look into.
Historically, have you had many incidents?
In my time with the town, we haven't had any issues with damages to the fields or equipment. If it's raining, heavy rains and puddles, we end up canceling the field rental, so there isn't that damage to the field.
And how about in the case of the facilities, what about like a cleaning charge, or is there something that states they have to put it back to look the way?
Yeah, so in the contract that they sign, they have to just sweep it and basically have it as is when they arrived. And then our staff will come in and do more of a deep clean, bring out the trash to the barrels and stuff of that nature.
So when you look at that with what you have as those rental charges, does that pretty well cover what it costs for your staff to come out and do what they need to do?
Yeah, I would say it would definitely, it covers the overall cost of our staff being there and then the cleaning afterwards.
Okay, and they're required also to have insurance?
Yeah, so all of our rentals, including pavilion rentals, beach weddings, and LaRusso Lodge, all have to have the insurance.
Okay, and in the case of your programs, how often do you review the programs?
So we kind of sit down and basically look at what we're going to have to buy for equipment, if we're going to have staff at the program, seasonal staff, or if it's going to be one of the assistant director running it. So we kind of, basically year after year, it's going to be the same cost, like with uniforms for basketball, uniforms for t-ball. It's generally the same costs every year. We do a quick analysis of, all right, how much it's going to cost, and then go based on that from last year, if it's going to be that same price.
Well, what about Flax Pond? I mean, that's a...
So Flax Pond, so for A week, it's $190 for a resident and $250 for a non-resident. That's been comparable the last several years with salary, and we pay the salaries and equipment and supplies, field trips, all of that comes out of a revolving fund. So we sit down and we do the budget for that each season. But at the same time, we want to keep the costs lower to be affordable for families for that childcare aspect in the season. So if we do end up having to dip into the revolving fund a little bit and go over on the flax budget, then we make up for that with our other programs, just to keep that cost
Which is
for families
unique
low.
for the whole system that we work in. The only revolving fund, I think, that we have for the programs is in recreation, and we made that conversion. So they're really required on an annual basis to examine the program costs and to set the fees to meet those, albeit with, in certain cases, there's subsidies for disadvantaged.
Do you have, I know in years past, at one point, we were getting some rather significant money in for scholarship programs to assist, but I believe as the years have gone on, we've seen that number decrease. Is that true?
So we do have people still donating for the scholarship. We'll have people call and say, I want to donate this amount of money to have a kid go to Flax for a week. I've been with the department for 2 years now, so I can't really speak on the history of how much we've gotten in scholarships in the past, but we still do receive money for scholarships for kids who need it. So, and I can look more into that and get back to you guys if you want exact figures.
That's okay. Any other questions?
Thank you, Steve. I'd just like to request maybe a copy of one of your rental contracts for the next time you appear. I just would love to take a look at it. And also, if we had it in the packet, then we could refer people to it, and they'd come to you with a little more knowledge of the process and probably ask you fewer questions.
Yeah, it's a lot of information I just threw at you in numbers, so I can definitely get you that contract so you can look at that chart and have a better understanding of the costs.
That's all. Thank you.
I could just say quickly that it's a Flax is a great location for weddings and stuff. We, my son and I, we weren't getting married. My son and his fiance looked at it for a wedding, and it was a real nice spot to have a wedding.
Yeah.
That's all.
And we have marriage fees coming up later, so we could put together a nice package from the town.
Tracy?
What percentage usage would you say your fields are? Because I know fields are at a premium. And the usage of the Flax Pond facility as just an overall percentage, I think, of, occupancy.
So we're actually in the midst of a field study right now. We have a consulting group, Weston and Sampson, who we've brought in to kind of analyze that percentage of field use, how much the fields are being used, the hours on the fields, and if we're utilizing all the fields to the best of our ability in town. They're going to make recommendations on that usage to us to be able to kind of formulate some numbers on the national standards of field use. So I'll have a better idea, I think, of the percentage as that study moves along.
When do you think that will be available?
So August is, I think, the target date for that.
So maybe for our January meeting, you'll be prepared to have some recommendations at that time?
Yeah, definitely.
One last question on Flax. Your applications are coming in now. Are they for this year's Flax Pond?
Yeah, so registration for that opens in January, and for residents and non-residents 2 weeks later. And it fills very quickly. I know there's only, in a couple of age groups, less than 10 spots in each group. Most of the age groups are filled, but like I said, registration for that fills, or are you talking about for staff?
No, I'm talking about.
Or participants, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that fills within the first 4 weeks, and in some cases, even the first week, a lot of the spots are filled. So it's definitely a high demand camp for people of Yarmouth. And then once the non-residents registration opens, then all the spots are ended up taking, so.
It's a wonderful program, and I think a lot of folks in town count on it every summer.
And that's a huge credit to our staff at Flax. Maria, our camp director, runs a great program over there.
She's wonderful.
She's amazing. And her husband Dan as well. They make it a lot easier on me being able to run their program over there to the best that they do, and then get the staff on board and all a team over there. So I want to give a huge credit to them as well.
And a lot of the staff are people that were actual participants in the program themselves.
Oh yeah,
younger.
They come back, they have a great time there, and they think as they age through, oh, I want to come back and work here.
I thought that every day I
revisit
dropped
that,
my
so.
son off, they were dancing and having fun. I was like, I don't want to go to work. I want to stay here.
It's definitely a lot of fun.
The facility itself is just a beautiful
Oh yeah,
location.
There's so much to do in that area, and they utilize every inch of that property basically, with our Project Adventure, archery, the pond, basketball court. There's kind of limitless on what they can do at that area. So it's
Playing
great.
pickleball yet?
Not yet. We're trying. So, and once they do, I think it's over. So. Oh yeah.
One more question, Marcus, if I may. So, speaking of pickleball, is there a fee for the tournaments, the folks that are coming in there and pretty much using it?
Yeah, so we have a pickleball membership group that's Monday to Saturday from 9 to 12. $30 for residents and $45 for non-residents. And I think I said they play from 9 to 12 on those days. And we have a board of the pickleball membership group that checks them in each day, make sure there's on a list.
Gotcha.
And if there's space, we do have a drop-in for that as well.
Right.
And then the rest of the time is just open play pickleball.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
I know we have Diane Kane, our Senior Services Director. I don't know if she wants to address some of the rental fees at the senior center. Maybe we could promote her to a panelist.
Madam Chair, while we're getting ready for her to be promoted, I just have a general question. A number of people have already presented, and I'm just wondering if we can excuse them and allow people to go home. I see a number of folks that have already
please.
presented.
Please.
I would like to see if it's okay if we can just let those that have already presented leave.
You may leave. You are
you don't want
dismissed.
to,
If
Folks that have
if
presented,
you've
you're
done what you
excused.
needed to do, go right ahead.
So thank you.
Thank
you
you.
for hanging in there. No,
Great staff.
There goes the
You have
room.
deserved some time off. For those of you remaining, we'll try to get to you as quickly as possible so you too can go home. Diane, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay. If you'd like to go over your rental fees?
Yeah, I apologize for not being down there in person. I'm starting to come down with something, so
Please stay
I
away.
will apologize. Yeah, I figured you'd feel that way. So we have two rental fees. One is for our building for a rental fee. I'm sorry, and the other one is community gardens. With our rental fee, as I think you have the charges in front of you. The first charge is for charitable organizations or town committees and commissions. The second one is for registered nonprofits, and the third is for everybody else, like social groups, individuals, for-profit groups. And the fee varies from no charge for the first group, $15 to $25 depending on what they're renting, and then on the second group, and then on the third group it varies between $25 and $40 if they're renting a full ballroom. These prices can go up. Just for example, in Harwich, they're charging $400 for 3 hours. For our maximum at $40, at 3 hours, it'd be $120. So we have some room to go up. So that one being on the rental fee. On the community gardens, right now we're charging $20 for the Yarmouth Senior Center Community Gardens and $25 for Bray Farm. These also, I think, can go up based on the price. In the community gardens itself. So I don't know exactly how much. I would say on the rental fee, we could stand to go up 50% based on the Harwich example, but that's up to you.
Do you require that they have insurance to do the
Yes.
rental? Okay.
Yes, we do.
And how about on cleaning? Is there an additional cleaning charge, or how must they leave the room when they exit?
They should leave the room exactly as they found it. So that means all the tables and chairs and everything else get put to the side as they found it. The room gets swept. The kitchen gets all wiped down. So, they are responsible for that. If in the case that they do not, if they leave this place a mess, then we withhold their rental deposit.
Okay.
Their security deposit.
And, okay, and how do you distinguish between a charitable organization and a registered nonprofit?
Okay, so that, the charitable organization is basically somebody that you deem necessary to, rent for free. So right now we have the Garden Club, for example. They can rent during the week. They can use our facilities, and they're not getting charged for it.
Are they the only organization right now that you have?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Okay. Any questions for Diane?
I have questions.
Go ahead.
Diane, can you tell me what FB stands for on the top line of where it says rental fees?
That would be the full ballroom.
Full ballroom, or the other one is half of the ballroom or a class. Okay.
Yes.
So do you have a different fee structure for when staff is there? I mean, I'm thinking to myself, if you have a nonprofit that utilizes your room in the evening or on a weekend, when staff, I imagine, would have to be there for it, that there's no possible way $15 an hour is covering the cost of that.
Yeah, we don't provide staff. When they have a rental, they come and pick up the key, and we don't provide staff on site.
They have access to the building with nobody in there?
The building is locked from, it's alarmed on the half of the office side.
Okay. All right. So this is, so you don't typically staff it or clean it.
We get it cleaned through our cleaning services. We're supposed to be on 7 days a week.
Say that again, Diane. I'm sorry.
Our cleaning service covers us for 7 days a week.
Okay, so they come in every day?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Whether you have anybody in there or not?
Correct.
And that's part of the town's contract?
Correct.
And what would you say your occupancy is?
For rentals?
Yes. For the facility in general?
I don't think that's what she's asking for. All right, so you're not talking about the rental maximum capacity. You're talking about how many nights we have it rented out, right? Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Since we went on to we used to be rented out 7 days a week prior to COVID. And then after COVID, we started, the rules came in across to us that it wasn't supposed to be anybody that wasn't covered with insurance. They couldn't rent without insurance, having insurance.
So the
And
occupancy is down now?
Yeah, so it basically, it took away the small parties and stuff like that, like the, anniversary parties and the, baby showers, things like that.
Okay. And have you done you did an analysis of Harwich. Have you done an analysis of the coverage of your staff for any of these times? You basically don't provide it, they just use the building. That's what you're
Correct.
saying. Okay.
Correct. But most of our people, we've had for rentals, for a number of years. So that they have like an understanding that, you know, if they mess up, they don't have a rental place to go to, so.
Okay, thank you.
And then, Yarmouth Barnstable, I got, was $75 an hour for their ballroom. And then, Dennis Senior Center was $165 per event, so I don't know exactly what their rental time frame was.
Okay. Any other questions for Diane?
Yes, Diane, this is Joyce. Welcome. I have a question for you. When you were just saying the past with the 7-day rentals and now the smaller groups because they don't have the insurance, not being able to rent, is there any possibility that there's a local business that would, a local insurance business that would do something like 1-day insurance for a party like a baby shower, which seems like it's not likely to tear up the center? It seems like that would be a helpful thing.
That's what they get. It's a one-day event rider that folks get.
And would that be possible, Bob, for something that isn't an organization, it's just a one-time social gathering?
Individual
Anyone can
person
get.
can get it. It's maybe
Anyone
between
can.
$60, $75 for.
Oh, so it may be cost that's.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
could be.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people can't afford that cost when they're, you know, on top of the rental fees.
Okay, and then I just have one other question. The few times I've been in the senior center in the new year, it seems to me that there's something going on in every corner of it. So I assume any weekday space rental is not even possible. Am I correct?
You're correct. We don't ordinarily rent out during the week, unless it's at 4:30 and beyond.
Okay.
The garden club just got a special deal. I guess they were grandfathered in, or that's how it's always been told to me. So.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for doing all you do in that crowded space.
Thank you,
Liz.
I just wonder, but for our purposes, to make the inquiry amongst ourselves, should the deposit be something that the recreation department maybe should look into when they're renting the fields or even flax? It's a way of having something in case something happens without costing the person who's putting up the money. It's not going to be charged unless they do something that they need to use the money for. It might be something we should ask recreation to include.
We can certainly look at that. Also, keep in mind that they're not coming back till August with their use of the fields.
But I agree with consistency. I mean, if you rent one building, why are we have one policy at one place and a different policy at the other place? It doesn't make much sense.
Right.
True. We can look into that. Any other questions? Diane, I hope you feel better.
Thank you. It came on awfully fast.
Hopefully it goes away really fast.
Goes away just as
I hope
fast.
so.
Thank you very much, Diane.
All right, you're welcome.
Okay, I think we're getting down. We have our chiefs with us. Do you guys want to come together?
Famous last words. I'll be quick.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So our fee schedule at the police department's, it's pretty light. So the first one we have is the door solicitor, which is in the bylaw that we charge $50 for each person that's going to be a solicitor. The next one is we charge a $100 fee for fingerprints, $70 goes to the town, and $30 goes to the Commonwealth, and that's for the Firearms Fingerprint Identification Verification Trust Fund. The next one is license to carries. It's $100 for a license to carry or an FID. That fund goes directly to the Commonwealth. If you're a police officer for the town of Yarmouth, you don't get charged the fee, and if you're a police officer for another community but you live in Yarmouth, you only pay $25. We have a $10 ice cream peddler fee, and I looked, and it appears that Barnstable charges $30 for that. And then we have a taxi license fee of $10, but that's probably going away because town taxis announced that they're closing. Lyft and Uber and the other rideshare companies have pretty much put them out of business, unfortunately, because they were a great asset to the town. And that was a $10 fee, but again, that's probably going away. And then we just have the general fee that we can charge for public records, which is $25 after the first, $25 an hour after the first 4 hours of research. So those are the fees that we have at the department. And I talked to Nick Giamarco, he's our records officer. He said that the fees have not gone up in a while, but the limited research that I did do, it looks like we're in line with the other communities.
Okay. Any questions for the chief?
I just have a question with the LTC. You said it's $100 and it's paid directly to the state, so the department themselves for the work in that they don't get any fee at all, is that customary?
Yes, that's how it is, yep.
The standard?
The fee goes directly to the Commonwealth.
And there's no department that charges above and beyond for their time?
No, the fee is set by the MGL that covers that.
Interesting.
Any other questions for the chief?
I just want to know what we're going to do with the town taxi was always great for, you had some fund during New Year's and stuff that they would help get people home. If there's another way we could look at making sure, I felt like that was a pretty successful program.
The Safe Ride Home program was very, it was very well run, and town taxi, they never charged us. So we would call them up, and John would say, whatever you need, and we would set it up. So now that that's gone, it's going to be a bit of a problem, but.
So that was town taxi donated that
Yes,
service?
Town taxi, yes. So we had donations came in the very beginning under Deputy Chief Exaros and Chief Frederickson. They had set it up, and we had some donation money, and then we would set it up, and they would never bill us. They were very generous. I would call them up and say, this is what we want to do, and made sure that the rides were from a Yarmouth establishment within a certain parameter, but they would handle that for us.
Wow. It's
So
fantastic.
you don't have any recommendations for any fees at this time that you feel that need to be addressed other than potentially the public records?
The public records, and Mary, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that's by statute, correct?
Yeah, by statute, we are, excuse me, we're not allowed to charge for the first 2 hours based on the town size. After that, it is capped out at $25 an hour unless there is some special reason that we would have to appeal that to the state to get any other additional fees, and that's on a case-by-case basis. And even our individual charges for copies are dictated by the state statute. So I think there's currently 5 cents a page, so
Waited all that time for
there's,
that?
That's okay.
there's no room there.
We've had some significant FOIA requests come in where we will give them an estimate, and we had one come in not too long ago. The estimate was over $5,000, and they chose. Then they asked for the world, and then they started paring it down, and then we still ended up charging them, but there's only so much we can do.
Okay. Thank you very much, chief.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thanks, chief.
Who's taking his are you taking your jacket off and get comfortable?
I don't want to get too. I don't want to get too comfortable. So,
It's like, I'm going to keep this on.
how you doing tonight?
We're good. How are you?
Very good. Very good. So most of our fees are in line again with other communities as far as our permit fees, burn permit fees, and our inspectional services. So I didn't recommend any changes to those. The only thing that I brought was a conversation about maybe talking about ambulance billing fees. It's been at least 3 or 4 years since we did any changes to those, and we are. I asked for updated information from our billing company, but I didn't get it in time tonight. But I had information from back in July of last year, and out of 7 comparables that she gave us, we're 6th at the bottom as far as what we charge for fees. the fees are broken down into ALS and BLS based on the services that we provide. For the BLS calls, we are sixth in there, and then ALS. There's ALS and ALS2, which is a category that goes up based on if we do more than like a couple of medications. Or, again, all dependent on what you're doing. And those fees, again, we are close to last, or at the bottom of the scale in comparison to our neighboring
Change in
communities.
the Medicare reimbursement, Medicaid at all?
No.
No increase?
No, not at all. Or if it has, it's been very little. On a yearly basis, our ambulance receipts are just over $2 million, which is about 30% of what we actually bill. So we're getting back, on average, about $500 an ambulance call, and obviously they cost a lot more than that.
What about the private insurance? Has their reimbursement rates increased at all?
Again, I think that's based on what you charge. If these fees are based on private insurance,
Right.
and then Medicare, Medicaid, those are we're getting a
They don't
much
have
smaller.
like they're not like Medicaid that says for this, they pay X amount. They will pay the
I
submitted
think for the
amount.
most part, and I could be wrong. I don't know if you have any more information on that, but I can get more detailed information. Again, like even when we do a large increase in our fees, it doesn't really translate into a large return on what we receive because of our demographic is typically more on the Medicare side.
Who's our ambulance waiver select person right now? Who's doing the ambulance waivers? Has there been any?
There's been a couple. I know that I've signed on a couple. I'm not sure who from the board was on it.
Okay. I'm just curious how that, yeah, I'd personally be interested in looking for that. I think that we should be doing that on a more regular basis than trying to really go up. I know a lot of it doesn't net much, but
Right.
as we know, we're looking for an override to fund the department, and certainly your department is not,
Yeah.
fees that you charge are not covering the cost.
No, and everything we use is getting more and more expensive. Obviously, we used most of that money for our capital expenditures, but the cost of the ambulances are all going up. All of our equipment is going up. The medications are going up. Everything we use is getting more and more expensive every year.
Does Medicare charge you a flat rate, or, for instance, let's say that you've had to give some special medications on the way, is there an additional fee that you can charge to Medicare and get reimbursed for?
I believe it's just a flat fee.
Flat rate.
They do an ALS or a BLS, one or the other, and they don't allow for any extra.
Okay. And I'm sure that is the majority of your calls, roughly percentage-wise,
I think it's close to 80% of our calls.
80% of Medicare.
Yeah, 70 or 80, yeah. That's why an increase in our fees really doesn't translate in much in revenue.
Okay.
Can I ask what ALS and versus BLS?
Sure. BLS is basic life support,
Okay.
and ALS is advanced life support. So if we do heart monitoring or IVs or medications, that moves it into the ALS category.
Thank you.
That would have been my only question for Enrique. I was puzzled by the acronym.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
We'll let you go home now, too.
Thank you.
Then I think our final one, thanks for waiting. Mary had a couple from the clerk's office.
Hi, Mary.
Again, our fees will be inconsequential when it comes to revenue coming in. There are a couple of fees that we don't capture that other communities do. Anytime there is a occurrence of a death within the town, there is a separate certificate, which is a burial certificate, transportation certificate that we have to do as a part of processing that vital record. We don't charge for that here in Yarmouth. I'd say about half the towns do, half don't. So my recommendation on that was just that we add that fee Another fee that we don't capture is really amendments. When we have to make an amendment to a vital record, whether it's a birth, a death, or a marriage, it's time consuming. It is generally caused by the applicants not providing the correct information and then coming back at a later date. So to process that does take time. It's not a fee that we have charged to date. And again, it's another fee that I would say half the towns do charge and half don't. Eastham, for example, charges 40 for an amendment. In Harwich, when I was there, we were charging 25 if it was a real amendment that was caused by the applicant. As far as the other increases, most of these are self-explanatory. A business certificate is issued once every 4 years. Seems reasonable to go from $30 to $40. That rate's certainly been in existence much prior to my being here. And as far as the street listing books are concerned, we print those every year, annually at the end of the census cycle. We do provide those if people would like to purchase them. It's, again, a cost that we need to pay for. They're just more expensive every year in order to get them printed. We need to get them printed anyway for our own permanent records. We always purchase a few extras. 20 years ago, people used to flock in and buy them by the hundreds. Now we print probably 25 to 30, and we go from there. So, but as far as any of these increases, a burial permit, we're probably talking a quarter of our deaths are within the town of Yarmouth. So you're talking 100 or so.
Can you just explain, a street listing book, what exactly is that?
So that's a capture of all the residents within the town on an annual basis. It's the end result of the census year. So at the end of the census year, we will create a street listing book. We used to call them ward books in my former communities. And it's essentially not just the voting list, but it has a list of anyone that's over the age of 18, and the public record book of it will suppress certain confidential individuals, like certain police officers and their street addresses. Children under the age of 18 won't be included. But it's very important for us in future years, particularly if a veteran is coming back trying to prove their residency to get a federal benefit. We can go to our main street listing book, show that they were there and that their residency existed 6 months prior to their deployment, and then they can use that as evidence to seek their federal benefits.
So you say you have some extras that are printed just in case people need them.
We do.
But what would be the cost of those extras?
They cost us about $25 a book to print.
They do, okay.
So we
this
print
is your
them so
actual
that we
cost.
have them. We've reduced the number that we print. I wouldn't print 200 anymore.
Right.
Some cities and towns print them and hand them out to all the departments. We don't. We have them available if somebody wishes to purchase them.
Okay, so
A few people that purchase them every year.
so they basically cover your annual cost?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mary?
I'd just like to say, Mary Trees, thank you for not printing them for every household and distributing them.
Certainly.
I'd make a pitch, I'm sorry. I'd make a pitch to leave the business certificate at $30, because I think the small business owner needs to be encouraged to go ahead and come on in and get a business certificate.
So ultimately, it's up to you folks on making that decision.
Yeah.
It's one fee. It's one fee every 4 years.
Yeah,
So-
I just know from my own experience, it's like,
I appreciate that.
yes.
I just have a question about dog licenses. I don't see it
Yes.
on here.
So our dog licenses are actually fees are actually buried in the bylaws, so we didn't come forward with that at this point. But that being said, our dog licenses are pretty well in line across the Cape. We charge $10 for neutered and spayed dogs, 20 for intact dogs, and then we have a multi-pet fee. The state has just come out and changed the rules with respect to some of the kennel licenses, so we hope to have a revised dog bylaw at the fall special town meeting. There wasn't time to put that together for the annual in April. But the hope is to change the bylaw so that it now matches the new Ollie's Law that was passed and was effective in December, and so that we can also capture all the new types of kennels. They've changed, they've also changed which dogs needs to be licensed. It's now 5 or more dogs in a single household. And the dog, if the dog is over the age of 3 months, where it used to be 6 months. So we're trying to encompass that for the fall.
Okay.
But as far as the fees itself, we're pretty on board, and we have very few commercial kennels in Yarmouth, so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Okay, Bob, is that it?
So that's it for the fee discussion, and what we'll do is we'll work with the departments to come up with a list of fees for the public hearing, and I have to double check what the requirement is for advertising. I thought it was just 1 week. Mary tells me it may be a 2-week advertising period.
Well, Amber's here. Did she have?
I was here to bond anticipation. Gain information.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if there were fees related to licensing that we were going to discuss.
No, I did get some valuable information, though.
Okay. Then, moving on to the bond anticipation note, we have a memo, I believe, from Jennifer.
Is it too soon to make the motion?
Go for it.
Move to
sorry.
approve
Oh,
the
sorry.
sale of $16 million at 4% general obligation bond anticipation note of the town dated April 17th, 2025, and payable April 17th, 2026, plus to Jeffries LLC at par, and accrued interest plus a premium of $171,040, and further incorporate the attached vote of the Board of Selectmen. Hold on, I gotta get to the other vote.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those?
Why was the plus inserted in the reading? Payable April 17th, 2026 plus?
We redid the memo. It was to, there's an updated memo that was to be distributed to the board. If you
I'm
didn't get
sorry.
it, I apologize.
Is the context of it doesn't, other than the date, didn't change, correct?
Right, and I
Date
did
was
notice
at
the
the
plus, I
top.
took the plus out.
Okay. All right, well, it doesn't change.
Okay, so it was just a,
And I further certify that the votes were taken at a public, right? These all have to be read into the record and voted on, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of your packet. If you want to read the whole thing into the record, that's fine. It's up to you.
I think we should. But
Go for it.
I further certify that the votes were taken at a meeting open to the public and that no vote was taken by secret ballot, that a notice stating the place, date, time, agenda for the meeting, which agenda included the adoption of the above votes, was filed with the town clerk, and a copy thereof posted in a manner conspicuously visible to the public at all hours in or on a municipal building. Is that still the law?
It's the public meeting notice. It's the agenda, I believe you're
Correct.
referring to.
But I didn't think.
Posting's allowed, right?
Yeah, I didn't think that this was still the wording that needed to be in the motion, but the municipal building at the town clerk is located, or if applicable, in accordance with the alternative method of notice prescribed or approved by the Attorney General as set forth in 940 CMR 29.03, Section 2B, at least 48 hours, not including Saturdays, Sundays, or legal holidays prior to the time of the meeting, and remain so posted at the time of the meeting, that no deliberations or decision in connection with the sale of the notes were taken in executive session, all in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18 through 25, as amended.
Do I have a second on that?
You got one from me,
I further certify that the votes were taken at an open meeting.
when it's appropriate.
These are both the same, right?
Yep.
Just read it, yeah.
It's the same exact thing.
It's the same exact thing, so.
I think you just need one.
Are those the only motions you need?
Yes, we'll incorporate the attached, what was in your packet, into the minutes.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimous. Thank you. Now you can go. Okay. Moving on to our next item, we have discussion of a housing workshop. I'm going to turn this over to Mark and Bob.
Okay, let me kick this off, and then I'll segue to Bob. We've talked about this at a couple of our prior meetings about having a workshop meeting, and this is something that we used to do with a much greater degree of frequency, where we would largely focus on a topic, and then as a board, literally gather around a table and have a dialogue and a discussion. Usually the understanding was that there wouldn't be any votes. It would be a workshop inviting an informal conversation among board members to educate ourselves on a particular topic. And so I think there was really strong interest in doing something on housing. And when I recommended that we do it, I had in mind some sort of very specific suggestions that would be worth discussing. You know, a number of communities are using the Community Preservation Act dollars to advance some very creative initiatives for affordable housing. For example, in Provincetown, they have a down payment assistance program that they use their funds for. Other towns are using funds to either do deed restrictions or find other ways to literally create programs that eligible residents can tap into to make it easier to stay in housing or to access a new housing, or to be able to stimulate a supply of rental housing. So these are initiatives that are underway in a number of communities, and they're having some degree of success. So when we first talked about this, we talked about maybe having a focused conversation on a couple of communities with the guests coming in, and then when we talked about also inviting other housing committees to come in. But during the discussion, it was thought that it would also be appropriate with all these other committees that we should essentially invite them to talk about key topics that they're working on. And so when we started looking at the overall program, if you add up the committees and the work that they're doing, the things that are going on, and we get updates from them, and then you go into a presentation and a discussion on some of these projects and initiatives in some of the other communities, we'd be here probably until midnight. So in my discussions with Bob, it was thought that what we do is sort of maybe break this up and focus on maybe first talking to each other about things that we're doing that everyone should be aware of, and have a conversation amongst ourselves first and get that going. So I'll turn it over to Bob, because he had sort of worked on a flow of the agenda and how it would go, who would be here, and some of the things that we would talk about. So after discussing it with Bob and keeping it focused largely on that, I agreed it made a great deal of sense, and we might want to revisit some of this other stuff, you know, at some future date when we've got some time to deal with it. But I think focusing on our committees and having a discussion about what's going on within Yarmouth amongst our committees, you know, is incredibly important. So
Agreed. Yeah.
should be prioritized over the other stuff right now.
You know, and building on that, I would say, too, that it's been impressive to see in recent months, we've made a lot of progress in gathering all of the housing stakeholders in our community together to make some progress on working on some of these issues that sometimes are handled very disparately. And that process has really culminated in a series of recommendations under the Mattakees Utilization Committee, and they have, you know, from the detailed brainstorming down to the prioritization, and that's a process that, you know, was kind of fascinating, but it was almost outside of the select board realm. So one of the things that we felt is to continue to gather all of our housing stakeholders together with the select board, and then, really close the loop, that would be a very valuable discussion. And so we began, that brainstorming, and I really thank Mark for his leadership in kind of helping us to put all of this together. And I also want to acknowledge Mary Wagon, our affordable housing specialist, who really has invested herself in helping. We've been working on the details of this to really bring it to life. And what we hope to do is the draft agenda is in your packet, that it's really a full evening. If we start off with, we'd like to have an update on the short-term rental study, and it is the University of Massachusetts. It's not the Collins Center, it's the Donahue folks.
Institute.
Right, that, so that, we're updating that. And Kerry Spritzer, who is our project manager from UMass, is going to be able to zoom in. Some of these folks, I think it's great, they're coming from across state, but they'll be here in the hybrid format to talk about the short-term rental study, what some of the goals are. Obviously, it's just kicking off, so they're not going to have any of the results of the study, but one of the key next steps also is the interviewing of the individual members of the select board on that topic. And so she'll be able to discuss a little bit more about some of the goals of the study, some of the methodology that's going to be involved, and the interview process for the select board. And I think that whole issue of the short-term rentals, that's something that, we've spent a lot of time at the Affordable Housing Trust talking about. That is this really limiting year-round rental opportunities for local residents in need? We know some of the other communities have done these studies, and there's been some mixed results. And so to have the data from Yarmouth involved in there, I think it'll really be a driver of what, public policy focus that you folks have with respect to the short-term rentals. And so there's been a lot of work that has been done and is coming up on that one, so we thought that'd be a great topic to kick it off. And I think that the community, would really be interested in that topic as well. And from there, we hope to.
Can I just add something to that, Bob?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think would be helpful to get out of this the study is, as Bob had said, we need to really. In the initiative for this came from the Affordable Housing Trust, and I represent the board on the trust. And I think we really wanted to get at this whole question of, to what degree is this type of market activity having an adverse impact on the year-round housing supply? I think there's a growing recognition that it is. There are groups that are springing up, calling on select boards and local officials to do a better job at regulating and managing the activity. As some of you might be aware, in Nantucket, it's become incredibly controversial. There have been a number of controversial town meeting articles and discussions about it. And I think from my perspective, there's also a need to recognize that this activity does, or a portion of this activity, a significant portion, provides revenue that we use for wastewater. The Airbnb tax funds and underwrites the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund. And I am your representative on that fund board, and I've been raising the question of what do we have to do on Cape Cod to improve the capital position of the fund, because we have so many wastewater projects. The demand for funding is growing significantly, as we've discussed before. And it has been suggested in a number of circles that there may be potential to utilize some of this short-term rental housing as a potential revenue source to boost the current Airbnb tax, for example. And so if we are going to even consider that or give some thought to that as a potential option, having this kind of study is going to be crucial for us to understand, basically how best to manage this market. Is how much of a potential additional revenue stream might we be able to extract from it? So those are the two major concerns from my point of view, is making sure that out of this, we're able to have a better handle on its impact in terms of affordable housing, some recommendations in terms of how to manage affordable, the short-term rentals, and then understanding if one of the management tools is to use revenues and taxation, further taxation, what's the sweet spot for that? If you tax too much, are you having a real deleterious effect on the market? Is it too onerous, problematic? Does it create some other unintended consequences? So,
All great topics to discuss at the meeting.
yeah.
But I
so,
approve this agenda. I think that we should consider a different location. I don't think you're going to get that many people in here comfortably to sit around a table. I mean, how many committees are we talking?
Well, we're talking about what, the Yarmouth Affordable Housing Trust, there'll probably be about 3 or 4 more people there. The Community Housing Committee, and then some of the housing folks that have been involved in the MUC, the Utilization Committee.
About the Housing Authority.
And the Housing Authority, of course, yes, we want to invite them.
So,
A lot of people.
there's a lot of people in this little room, so maybe we want to consider the senior center.
Or what about the Simpkins Library,
That library's great, too.
right, where we do our
Bigger
goal
than this
setting?
room, though?
You know what it is? It's very open.
Seats and chairs. It's open, but there's all tables. Like it's.
So the question is can we put sufficient number of tables around here? I think we can. Actually, when you look at the MUC meetings, there's a fairly large crowd at the MUC meetings, right?
Also for the local comprehensive plan, they had
Yeah.
table arrangements set up in here. It seemed they
Yeah.
could accommodate.
What about
My
the
recommendation is we try to, I've seen these MUC meetings have had a huge number of people.
We had
I
all
think
these groups, and
Yeah.
we actually were able to get all the groups around a square
huge-
table.
Yeah, we made.
better than the
pretty-
DPW?
Yeah, DPW is not that big. The only, if you wanted a bigger site, you'd probably try the senior center.
Yeah, I think we can fit all in here. But if, I think it's worth giving Bob and the staff some time to take a look at it, make sure we can do it. If it doesn't work here, that's certainly a perfect option. But I think, quite frankly, the goal is to have a conversation about the big things that each of us are working on. And in order to do that, I think it's great that this agenda kicks off with that study, because I think that's the meatiest thing that we need to talk about. And, the contract's been signed, they're starting to get underway, and I think this kind of feedback and this kind of discussion can be incredibly helpful to them.
When you say a contract's been signed, who are you talking about?
This is the University of Mass
Study.
short-term rental study.
Yeah, the Donahue Institute, they're the
Right.
firm that's been brought on board to do this. And
I had a few items we might maybe consider having a quick feedback on. For instance, the Yarmouth Comprehensive Plan is starting to get some actual meat on it in terms of housing. Should that be, the piece that would speak to that be brought in? As here's what the community wants. And then is there any kind of, probably not much activity on the ADU front, but if there is any, having that available too would be interesting, I think, for us. And then last, you mentioned the community preservation. If that fund can be used in any creative way, as you were saying, Mark, that should be included too.
I think then we're going to start getting into being here till midnight.
yeah,
I don't think we need to have reports. I was thinking,
But there'd be I think particularly when you get into creative sources of using the community preservation, that in itself is going to be a lengthy discussion.
Yeah, I think this agenda, makes a great deal of sense. I wouldn't modify it much at all. I think the committees need to be in the room together. The principal committees that are dealing with housing need to have a conversation with one another about their top priorities. That's what, this came from this board, the last meeting. So, and I embrace that idea. I basically, suggesting that we ditch the original idea and embrace that and focus on that. Now, if this group thinks that there's some things that need to be communicated, to the planning board or the LCP group, that's great. But I think amongst ourselves, there are things that we're doing that we need to be talking to one another about. So,
I think this is a start.
This is a
Certainly
startup.
by no means an end.
No.
I think that there's a lot of details, and this might focus us on, getting this information is going to focus us on where we need whether it is the ADUs or the other things where we need to put our energy in, but I think this is a good start.
And again, we've done workshops in prior boards. We did workshops on a fairly regular basis, and there's no reason why we can't keep revisiting housing, you know, every, you know, maybe we decide as a board, again, you know, we may want to decide as a board that we pick up the pace of the workshops and make sure that housing, we come back to it, you know, once every 6 months, you know?
Or even sooner.
Or even sooner, exactly.
Because it's such a critical item.
It is.
Yeah, but I think this is good, it's comprehensive, it gives us a chance to start seeing what's going on in town, and it can be, from this, I think, jumping board to other workshops.
Exactly.
Or other items that we may bring onto the agenda itself for the select board.
And I think each of the committees benefits in terms of the work that they're doing by hearing from some of the others.
Right.
Yeah, so I think, all in all, and then, you know, the Housing Authority, I think having them there, I think makes a great deal of sense. I mean, the Forest Road proposal is coming up. You know, I'm obviously interested in hearing more about what they're doing, where they're going. I think I've been pretty open about my criticisms and concerns about that Forest Road development. The absence of any real commitment to do sewer or significant wastewater improvements there, I think is a huge problem with respect to that project. And I think, for me, having them on, I think, is incredibly important to
Oh, yeah,
to make sure that we at least give them a chance to sort of update us on what they're doing, so.
I have a question for Mark. Mark, do you see us doing this fairly soon? So, for example, the Matakees Utilization Committee would be able to kind of have that insight about what was going on with housing efforts?
We have this scheduled for April 22nd.
Oh, we're all scheduled, okay.
Yeah, we're scheduled, April
Yeah,
22nd.
this housing workshop is for April 22nd.
Right.
And the
Oh,
muck,
that's right, we were gonna put it on the Tuesday after the long, yeah.
right, so the first item would be focused on the short-term rental study. That was initiated by the Affordable Housing Trust to get briefed on that. The second item on the agenda is an update from the Affordable Housing Trust membership on some of their initiatives. The trust has been very focused on Grayfield and blighted sites, and we've had some interesting conversations about how aggressive we might want to be in that regard. Again, I hate to dominate this conversation, but I've been very aggressive in suggesting that if we're going to be doing new housing, blighted property should be at, you know, the redevelopment and dealing with blighted property should be at the top of the list. How do we get at making that a priority rather than developing open space in other locations where we're potentially impacting water resources? So I think that's important. And then obviously the Matakees Utilization Committee, some great stuff is going on with that group on affordable housing. And again, that's a site that I think in the past we've suggested that the Yarmouth Housing Authority could consider, since that project has a commitment to wastewater infrastructure there. That would be an appropriate place to partner with the town from some housing development, and at least consider that and incorporate some of their thoughts with respect to that site. Maybe that's a better alternative for the Forest Road site. I think we as a board have talked about that as well. So I think that's a pretty full agenda right there.
I think it's a very full agenda, and I think that I'm looking forward to April 22nd, so we'll see what's going on. Great. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Bob. Looking forward to it. Okay, the next item that we have on the agenda is the minutes for the March 26, 2024 meeting. This is going to be how do we say it?
Vote of necessity.
Vote by necessity, because. So I entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve our board meeting minutes of March 26th, 2024.
Second?
Okay. Any discussion?
I would note that there were some changes made there was a typo.
Okay.
So it's been corrected.
With any,
Well, that has to I mean, if it's different, if we're changing what we're
Then what's in
approving,
the
we should.
public record, we have to, yeah.
I called it in, and so I
Called
don't.
who?
Pardon? I emailed Mary Alice and said there are inconsistencies in the minutes there, so.
Okay, well, that has to be shared with us, because we're now, you're telling us we're approving
Yeah.
something other than
And
that's
Madam
not
Chair, I'm
being-
going to withdraw my motion to approve the minutes. Maybe we can get the minutes
Yeah, once-
revised
once-
and sent to us at our
Once
next meeting.
they're corrected, then,
Then we can,
yeah.
Yeah,
right,
And the second goes into the trash can.
right.
you bet.
There we go. Okay, upcoming agenda review. We have a pretty full plate.
Yeah, April 15th is going to be a very busy night, and we're also going to do our town meeting preview that evening.
I think in particular Kleinfelder is going to be very interesting to hear an update. Okay, any additions or corrections? Okay, individual items?
You think you're gonna have the fee hearing, the first fee hearing that? You're gonna be able to do that?
On the 15th?
Yeah, do you think you're going to be ready, Bob?
I won't be
Probably.
here, just,
Or do you want to just postpone that fee hearing until the 6th? It's up to you.
We might have to, because I was talking to Mary earlier, and she seemed to indicate that we needed 2 weeks advertising, and my schedule had 1 week advertising. So
So let's move that to May 6th for the first hearing.
and then we do May 6th and May 13th, and we wouldn't
Right.
lose, we would only lose 1 week.
Okay. Okay, any other items?
Individual items?
Right, individual items?
Madam Chair, I think I had read an article in the Cape Cod Times about a resident of Yarmouth, a lobsterman, who was having some challenges. And it sort of raised to mind some concerns that I've had, and I want to put on the table just for some maybe future consideration. But and I don't want to get involved in the individual case, but I do think to some degree, sometimes it is helpful for us to maybe suggest that maybe the planning board, given their responsibility in zoning and so forth, we've had instances in which there's been a fair amount of attention drawn to the struggles that individual businessmen and business people have had with respect to operating in town. I don't know the specific details of this case other than what I've read in the newspaper, but I'm very sympathetic with the struggles of a fisherman or a businessman trying to make a go of it and having the difficulty, I guess, of operating a business in the town of Yarmouth. And maybe, obviously, there's a hearing coming up, and there's going to be some further deliberations and discussions, but I think maybe at some point in the near future, we might want to identify at least some of the, and have a discussion on the board if there are particularly thorny zoning issues that might warrant some further study involving the planning board and maybe town staff. Because, some of us do get complaints from constituents. We do hear from people. I've heard from folks regarding boat storage. There's been a lot of complaints that I've received regarding individuals who have trouble storing a boat in their yard. And we have a bylaw that requires all boats to be, out of a front yard.
Right.
And maybe there's some value in having, some further study and review of this, because in some cases, if you have a boat and you can't put it in your side yard or your backyard, what's your option?
the building commissioner has brought that very issue to this board for discussion before, and this board was very adamant about not changing that, because then what's next, a camper?
Right.
I mean, so we
Well, that's
have
what I'm
had
sa-
that, but I can just tell you from my time years back on the planning board and the zoning board of appeals used to get together on a regular basis, or I shouldn't say regular, but about annually, to discuss the things that you're talking about, items that should be brought for their consideration for possible amendments.
Oh, good.
I think that that is the appropriate avenue. I do not think that this board should be, with relation to somebody who's, people get.
I'm not suggesting, let me be clear on this. I'm not suggesting we render a verdict, but I do think it's valuable to have some I'm not sure the boards are having those discussions or having those meetings.
I think that the struggles and the challenges that are impeding businesses or thorny, so to speak, as you've mentioned, should be discussions between the zoning board of appeals and the planning board. For
We can
them to do an analysis and see if it's things that, that may need to be adjusted in the bylaw.
But do you see a value in us having a discussion on some of the things that we think they should at least discuss amongst themselves?
I think,
I do.
personally, I think we've made it very clear that when it comes to the select board, we're not involved in zoning. It's the purview of the planning board and the zoning board of appeals. I mean, certainly you can make a suggestion to them to look at these topics.
So I want to make sure I'm getting clear guidance here, because what I'm hearing is maybe if I have an issue and a concern, I should direct that individually to the board?
planning board.
To those boards?
Right.
Rather than us as a board having a conversation amongst ourselves and suggesting a few topics that they give consideration to?
Personally, I feel that when we're getting into zoning, that we really should deflect it back to the planning board. That's
I'm
where
not
it belongs.
suggesting that we not do that. I'm suggesting what I want to be able to do is I have some real concerns about these areas. And I want to see them have a dialogue. I want to see them study this and review this. I think the boat issue is a problem. It's created this perception that the town is engaged in selective enforcement. And I think that's totally unfair, but I understand the perspective of the people raising the complaints. I think it's not unfair for them to draw that conclusion,
Right.
since the evidence could easily suggest that. So I feel strongly that these things should be looked at. So I'm suggesting, what I know is process-wise, should this be a conversation that we have amongst ourselves and suggest as a group that these topics they consider, or is that something that I should just take up on my own with the board?
Or with Bob, because I was told I must go through Bob with things
We should all be
that
going.
affect the town.
Well, I think that there's another issue here, and that is kind of more basic to local residents that I see happening over and over again. And, slightly unfair the way it all happens is, we get together as a community and adopt these zoning bylaws, and they're voted by the residents. So it's this guide that has been created by the residents, and there, have been a series, especially just in the past year alone, of issues that have impacted very small numbers of people, one person at a time. They feel a hardship from the town's zoning bylaw. And a complaint comes in, the zoning enforcement officer, rightly, he's sworn to enforce the zoning as it exists, takes zoning action, then all of a sudden, the building official is vilified for, taking this unscrupulous and corrupt action against this local person. The entire town is, we're doing things terrible. And then it winds up, someone will file for a variance in front of the zoning board of appeals. Now, we all know very well that if it's a specific requirement of the zoning bylaw, there's statutory criteria that the zoning board of appeals must apply in acting on a variance. So people go on social media, they invite all their friends, look what the town is doing to me. We need to all come to the zoning board of appeals and get them to approve me, like it's just some political thing.
Like it's a vote of the room or something.
But you come into the zoning board of appeals and they turn you down because you don't meet the criteria. So I think that the issue is not whether the board of selectmen discusses it. I think what the issue is if you are a local person and you come up against, all of a sudden you get a letter from the zoning enforcement officer and you think it's unfair first of all, people need to know, it's not the zoning enforcement officer that makes this stuff up. He's looking at the zoning bylaw. So if you have a problem with what it says in the zoning bylaw, the question is this: is there a mechanism? What should you do? I mean, rather than just run out and do a petition to town meeting or get a variance from the ZBA, it would be great if there was a process where we could let people know. If you have a problem with the zoning bylaw, what you should do is put it in writing, send it to, somebody, and then we could put that in front of the zoning board and the planning board, and they could look at it, and we don't have to do it, but the idea that people feel they have no place to go except social media to vilify their town officials who are corrupt and out to get them, that's just not the type of system that we need. And if someone has a thing on the zoning and the thing on the boat, it may very well be that we just don't want boats in people's driveway, right? Period. It may be that if it's a boat smaller than a certain size, it might be okay. I don't even know. And it's not my purview to determine that. But where I would get involved is if we're sitting here. Now the poor guy, he's facing the zoning enforcement officer. He doesn't know what to do. What do we tell him to do? And it'd be great to have a process that he could at least go, well, we looked at this, and the planning board and the zoning board, they were of the opinion that the bylaw should stand. And then at least the guy would know, well, and then I have the authority, then I can do a petition on the zoning. So people at least know what the process is, and the process is not to go on Facebook and say the zoning enforcement officer and the rest of the town officials are crooked. Because that's just not fair. It's not fair to the zoning, it's not fair to the residents of the town, and it doesn't help the person. So I think what I glean from what you're saying is that to give local people like the lobster guy, I've read a lot of his material, and I feel poorly because I think he's going the wrong route. But we're not really in a position to sit him down and say, look, if you want to change the zoning, this is how you do it. This is who will listen to you. This is who you talk to. We know it's not us, right? It's not. I can't go, well, okay, I'm going to change your zoning. That's just sort of outside of the. But somebody should be there to be able to at least listen to the guy and then say, well, yeah, this is a thumbs up, this is a thumbs down, and this is what your recourse is.
I hear you, Bob, but shouldn't we be talking to the planning board about doing that then? Like that maybe the planning board has a subcommittee that they put together? I mean, that to me is something that comes under their purview.
I think one of the things makes it very, very difficult, and it's very unfortunate, is that when you look at this type of things in the zoning bylaw, like I mentioned with the boat, you can't look at it in isolation because it's not what's okay for one type of boat is in the front yard is not the idea of 5 boats that are unmaintained and they're using the parts and it looks terrible, and then you've got the camper, and then where does it end? It's the same thing with a business in a residential zone. How do you say, that, and, I think we should support our fishermen. This is, it's a very difficult thing, but, I mean, what happens if somebody wants to sell wind turbines out of their backyard? I mean, I know that that's ridiculous, but I'm just saying, you can't spot zone, and you can't, it's very difficult to think about, and that's why the planning board is the place to go, because they can do an analysis of what that means and what potentials could come from the change. And I think that that's an analysis that has to happen.
And I guess I'm trying to figure out if it isn't the select board who is tied to the people, in theory. I mean, I certainly have, Mark and I have office hours, so we're getting specific
I'm glad you raised that, because this is the feedback that I get.
Right, and so
I know I'm
it
having
seems
office
like-
hours on Friday, and I know I'm going to be hearing about Mr. Tonley's
But it seems like
situation
that
and
we
why a
bring it
fisherman
back.
can't fish
Yeah,
or conduct
we
a
bring
business.
it back
Yeah.
and we say, we need to prompt through our town administrator, a department, to look at something, because we believe that it needs looking at.
But the planning board represents the people too.
But I don't
mean,
think they're getting the message as much as we are because they're busy just doing their job.
Well-
We're out there meeting with people. Frankly, we're campaigning. I am, and you will be. And so we're much closer to issues that we think, that people think we should look at.
So then why?
Our job to say, can we look at this?
Well, then why don't you just go to the planning board and make the recommendation that that's what they should
I've been
do?
told, and I think Bob is right, that I should not go to individual committees and make suggestions or recommendations or criticisms. And I think he's right. I think if Bob's saying it should go through him, and that makes sense to me.
Planning board is not a town staff, so that's a little different. But I think that, to bring this issue up, and maybe the planning board has some ideas on the best way to handle it. They've done stellar work examining the zoning. All you need to look at is the short-term rental work, the ADU work, the overlay districts. Maybe they could help us. If they might not know that we're getting killed here on these small little zoning issues, and they might not want to be inundated, but maybe they can come up with a process, just like Tracy was outlining, for being able to, if someone has a problem with the zoning, rather than just yell at the building commissioner.
Well, they're going to yell, quite frankly, Madam Chair, we're the ones on the ballot. All right? If things go wrong, things don't work, they come to us, because we're the ones that are supposed to be directly accountable to the people. And I am just telling this board that we have some issues in town with zoning that we need to pay attention to, and we need to make sure that they get addressed. And all I am asking is, do we do that as a group, or how best? I have no problem going to the planning board and getting time in front of them, but I'm not sure that is the appropriate way to go.
I just think from a policy matter, I work a little bit differently. Maybe it's because I fall under old times here, but we as a group used to have policies that we did not go individually. Nobody has any individual authority.
Right.
I agree that we are the elected people and people come to us. I think Bob is our conduit. Okay, so when you have constituents that are complaining, it's for Bob to figure out, in my opinion, how it gets solved. And so when I have a concern,
Or at least the process, not how
whatever
to
the process is, you direct your concerns or what the constituents are saying, and, he'll report back that he's asked the planning board to look at it, or whatever he deems a way to resolute that issue. That's the way it's always been. I've never went to a department head. I do not go to committees. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think any of us should be doing that individually. I entrust in Bob to figure out a plan of action on how to solve these issues. And that's what I think, he's hearing, and I think he'll do that.
I've reached out to the planning board, to get their ideas on it, and I think it's good to bring it up and at least let people know, out there, look, we're concerned. We understand that this zoning bylaw that has been voted by all the townsfolk, it's not a perfect piece of work, and sometimes it pinches people when they find out they're in violation of it. But if folks have a grievance about the zoning, there's places to talk about it. It is reviewed at the planning board level, and it's not something that people should just be, casting aspersions on the offspring of the building commissioner because they did something wrong. There's better ways to handle.
He's doing
these
his job,
disputes.
as you mentioned. He's doing what people don't understand is the fact that the zoning bylaw, as you said, is voted on by the people. So, town meeting is extremely important in participating in the promulgation of these things and the approval of them, so that at the end of the day. But what I have to say is, and I read all the stuff, I don't interact. I think the one thing that this board needs to also remember is, down the road, if it ends up in litigation, it comes back to us. So I think we have to be conscientious about that piece as well. So Well, then,
Well, I raised the issue, Madam Chair, because I'm a believer that when you get mail, you answer your mail, you answer your inquiries. People have asked me about these cases, and I'm very comfortable with us as a board encouraging the town administrator to take actions in terms of interacting with staff and the planning board to see if there's some process or some way in which these can be reviewed and studied.
Well, I
I'm
think,
fine with that.
Bob, you've gotten that message from us.
yeah, the problem is, once it's already down this road, it's a very difficult thing to turn around from, right? So like, the great part would be like, look, I'm having a problem, maybe we could talk to the planning board earlier. Once there's zoning enforcement and the ZBA makes a decision, I think that's a very slippery slope for this board, whether we agree with it or not. Do we think it should be changed for the future? Potentially. But in terms of that particular situation, I think that there's autonomy for a reason.
Right. Well,
Madam Chair. Oh, I was just going to say, I would trust Bob for the roadmap purposes of informing the individual who might be affected, doing an info sheet that was no longer than one page, just kind of like about zoning bylaw, where you go if you're concerned about this, what your options are. I think that would be very empowering, and it might cut down on some of the crazy conspiracy melodrama. But I think the other thing is we have to assert that we're a full community. I'm really uncomfortable with new residents moving in, and they've moved in next to somebody, say, who's raising chickens, and they decide they don't want roosters at 5 a.m., but they moved there, and the roosters predated them. I mean, I think we have to be careful to defend all aspects of community and residents in Yarmouth, and not let people who were in pre-existing situations be trampled on by people who maybe would just like a pretty suburb.
well, don't we all feel that we've told Bob what, that this is a concern and that you're going to have your conversation with the planning board and?
Yes, I'll report back and we'll try to get a roadmap, that's a good way to put it, of what to do if you run afoul of the town's zoning. And, Molotov cocktails are not required.
Right.
Well, they're optional, I guess, but
Vilification
they're
is
kicking around
not,
somewhere.
vilification is not required either. But, so,
No, but there does need to be a process that's in place, that's appropriate,
Right.
to review and revise, when appropriate, certain zoning bylaws, and there's a way to do that. I think what we need to be cognizant of is at one time there was a process, at one time these boards did meet and discuss. I don't think that process exists today, and it's certainly worth looking at using that or other methods to make sure that these kinds of concerns are properly vetted, studied, looked at, and dealt with.
so, thank you, Bob.
There you go, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other items?
Yeah, and I just want to let the people who sent in letters that we read know that we are looking at the Yarmouth Housing Authority issue on the Forest Road property. It is not a done deal, and I just want to recognize that we got letters, and that you all got them as well as me. And I'd also like an update on the Plastics Committee, because I know that's also very important to a lot of people out there. Is there anybody can give us an update on that?
That would be.
It hasn't met yet, but I believe that the plan is to meet like in the second half of April for the first meeting.
We could ask them to give us an update and put it on the agenda. I mean, I think we have to be a little careful of what we keep bringing up here without having it on the agenda, So,
Just sometimes it's hard to get all the information that even I, as a select person, need. So that's why when we don't have a newsletter, we don't have a, we don't have a way. I don't feel like, unless I call everybody who's on a certain committee and say what's going on with your committee, I can't find out. You know what I'm trying to say?
Well, if the committee hasn't met, though, and
can
obviously
get an
if it had met, it would do a public posting. I think you can assume.
But I don't look at all of the public postings to find out who's meeting when. So that's a question about process again.
Well, what you could be doing is asking us to put on the agenda for a future meeting, an update from them, but I think we need to give them an opportunity to meet first before we put them on the agenda.
Okay. So that's what I can tell my people, though, is that they haven't met yet.
Right.
Okay.
Any other items? Okay. Moving on, we have the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimous. Bob?
Okay, just a few items to let you know. In addition to, we've got full speed ahead for all of the town meeting items, election items. The books are printed already. Town report is coming along really, really well. We're hurtling into the town meeting season. I want to let folks know I had a great meeting I attended on March 27 on the economic development visioning process with the assistant town administrator, our economic development person, and Kathy Williams, Karen Green, and we've got some big grant funds that need to get out of the door. A lot of spending has to be done by the end of the fiscal year, and they're making, I think, some great progress, and I can't wait till we're going to be involving the select board as stakeholders in that overall visioning process, and also, with outreach to the CEDC chamber. All of these stakeholders are coming together on this, so there's a lot of progress being made in that area. Here's another area that you might be interested in, maybe not, but I think we're struggling a little bit on the non-criminal disposition citations, and these are we're not back on zoning, but all of the other various bylaws that are enforced. There's a bylaw that has a system of you do a citation. And I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding among some of, the enforcement people that are named in the bylaw that do these citations is what do you do once you issue the citation and no one, pays the fine or answers you. And so we had a great meeting on that with all of the departments, and that's just an issue of focus that we're working on training people on. And in fact, we're putting together a sort of an internal training seminar, and Chief Lennon and the police department are assisting. They're very well adept at the process of following through with the district court on the various fines and things. And so that's an area that we're working with internally. And so we're making some progress.
Can I just interrupt? Does that include Old Kings Highway?
No, Old Kings Highway.
They go to building.
Yeah, they have a separate statute that governs what they do.
Right.
These are the ones that it doesn't come under zoning, is under the Zoning Act.
Yeah.
Old Kings Highway is under the Old Kings Highway Act. But a lot of the, like conservation, for example, is there under Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 21D, which is just this broad category.
Okay.
So the same thing goes for animal control, dog-related fines. It is a whole system of what would previously be these low-grade criminal acts that have all been transferred into this administrative realm that the town issues administrative citations, and there's a process that you have to go through the Barnstable District Court, and so it can get a little complicated, but
Does this relate to the
my report again?
Does this relate to the constituent inquiry that I forwarded to you?
Oh yeah,
on this?
it's mushroomed right up. We got right to the bitter nib on it. And
no, I'm glad you're looking at it because it's a very serious issue. I'm glad you're investigating it. I'm thrilled that you're doing this work, and I look forward to your update.
And it goes beyond to all of the people that are associated with that. It's just something that, you know, the town adopted a bunch of years ago, and no one really followed up on it. So it's a good project. And I know we've got Kleinfelder coming in. I've been meeting with them, and also our DPW, really honing in on some of these PFAS issues. And I think to have the working group that has been established in conjunction with the County Fire Training Academy has actually been able to help us make more progress on, for instance, getting the airport to put those wells westerly of where they consider their tow to be. And it has, since our last meeting, all of that information that's come out there has really sharpened, the town's perspective on that, and having a consultant. So we're getting much better informed, and I think we're developing a lot of better leadership on this whole business with the PFAS, working with the training academy, the airport, and everyone. So when we talk with the select board again, I think, that discussion's coming along. And another thing you should know about is, we're working very hard, with this wastewater construction, and boy, what a bear. I mean, it is just the most inconvenient thing for a community to go through, but we're spending a lot of time and effort continuing on it with the communications. And one piece that I'm going to be doing is having a seminar type of a session with our project team and the chamber. I think it's going to be later this week, and what we're going to talk about is some sign relief for businesses. And I know we need, there's a lot of code issues that we need to get to the bottom of, but the bottom line is we'd like to work with the business community to do some more specialized signage, more than we have, just more. And people need to know these businesses are open. Some of them are selling washing machines. You got to get there and get your washing machine. I mean, all of this stuff. And so we're going to try to get, I think, a more robust program of giving some relief to these businesses on how we can try to, let people know they're in business, get business to them, have signage. And that's just, been one of our areas of focus, and we're working with the business community on that. And so we hope to have some recommendations. How we skirt all of these laws, we don't know, but I think it's a matter of temporary signage, which can be permitted because it's all temporary.
Go ahead, Mark.
I think it's great that you're doing that. One thing to consider is maybe helping do some more marketing, advertising, letting people know Yarmouth's open for business, some way. I know there's some businesses that I can only suspect that their revenue is probably really taken a big hit. I don't know if we can do revenue replacement, but if we can find ways for people to access low-interest loans or some financing, I think that certainly would be helpful. That's something that I would have an economic development person looking into and examining, and at the same time, I would be looking at finding ways to have some very targeted marketing assistance to figure out ways for people to capture some more business activity. Because some folks, I think, are hurting really bad, and it just bothers me tremendously that we're not able to do more. So I'm glad you're looking at it. I'm glad you're looking at options. I think it's terrific. It'll be terrific if we can do more than what we're doing right now.
And just finally, very nice letter. I want to thank Mark, helped us. The letter to the governor requesting $500 million in the environmental bond bill that's upcoming to refund the SRF program was an issue that we discussed with the Undersecretary of Environmental Affairs when it was a week and a half ago. She was in Barnstable. We were up at the county complex, and officials from around the Cape were there to discuss with her what initiatives we saw for that environmental bond bill. And it became clear, and this, follows up with that situation because of the problems with the funding. DEP was looking at eliminating the carryover guarantee for some of these projects, and we were able to skirt that. But, if that ever happened on a $200 million project, they're only going to fund $50 million. that leaves us naked. I mean, it's just not a good situation, and so, you know, we jumped on that. This is our second letter in 2 weeks to the governor. She's going to love us. But I think it's a great letter. I'm glad that we're doing that, and we'll continue to follow it through, and we hope to see, you know, the SRF be funded so that they can give those carryover guarantees, especially in time, you know, for us to get phase 2 in there. And but I did want to thank, you know, Marcus, his efforts on kind of pushing to make sure that we stayed on top of that. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
That's all I have, I guess, for tonight.
Okay, then I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you all very much.
At 9:08.